In the fight for the trophy, only one of these teams will be able to continue down the path. Hello, everybody. I'm Trevor Quickshow Henry, joined at the Casters by Indiana, FLICKR, and Black, as well as Andrew Vedius Day. Winner goes to Rotterdam. Loser is eliminated. The stakes cannot get higher, FLICKR.
Yeah, and before we jump into this and get into the champions, I want to talk about the evolution, because I feel like on the analyst desk, it was continuously talking about, but Splyce, they showed all these picks, they were really pushed against SK, they pulled out the Vel'Koz and the Jace, whereas Fnatic didn't have to show anything against Vitality. And I want fans to think about the 4 teams that are left. We've got Origin, G2, Splyce, and Fnatic. We assume that Splyce and Fnatic are not scrimming each other. We know that G2 and Fnatic don't scrim each other. That means Splyce are probably getting scrims exclusively with G2, or at least getting scrims from G2. So if you're going under that intense training, how does that forge this team, and how does that change Splyce and what they're capable of going into this best of 5 against Fnatic?
One of the big things that we saw last week was a significant improvement in the team's mid-game. And I feel like that has been a big struggle for the team throughout the regular season. Coming into playoffs, we wondered if Splyce could translate an early game lead into a strong mid-game, and I think they demonstrated SK that they could do it. And this is going to be so important against Fnatic. So moving into the draft, I will be looking at what approach will they take. Will they stick with this comfort scaling style that they often use towards the latter half of the regular season, or will they try to match Fnatic in the early game? Will they try to fight them and challenge them where Fnatic seem at their strongest?
Well, we're going to find answers to all of those questions as the draft continues to unfold. Morgana, Xayah banned away by Fnatic, who chose blue side for game 1 of the series, followed by Sylas and Braum by Splyce.
And what's interesting is in the best of 5 of Fnatic versus Vitality, Fnatic banned every single time Hecarim and Draven, and neither of those champions had hit the ban bench. We had questions. Did Fnatic just not feel comfortable playing the Hecarim when they were so afraid of it, or was the Karthus a higher priority pick?
And now with the Karthus still available, it leaves the question, will Splyce look to ban it, or will they hand it over to Fnatic? I've had a lot of conversations with Zeus and his perception of Karthus. He thinks he's the best Karthus in Europe. I know he's confident on the pick, but it looks like that Fnatic is saying we're happy to leave it open, and if it is up, we'll grab it for ourselves.
Well, a couple of seconds to figure that one out. Kayle was the last ban from Splyce's perspective. Targeting Nemesis, he picked up a pentakill last weekend on that champion, and also he was the first member of Fnatic on stage 25 minutes before draft, getting into the zone, waking up, and the Karthus is locked in. During the regular season, Ivern was a pick that was run several times into that pick, and I want to see what Xerxes' answer will be.
So this feels like now, Splyce, that see that there's the Karthus there. It's kind of the general consensus that if you reach 15 minutes in the game and Karthus and the team are at parity, they have not been put behind, that he is just an unstoppable force. So what you're going to see is Splyce are very quickly going to double down on playing in the early game, on playing for the lanes, and try to abuse this Karthus, which is why we see picks like the Jace and Zoe.
What I also find quite interesting is by blind picking the Jace here, they're saying you can't pick something like the Vladimir up and towards the top lane, have that outscale option as well, because then you're going to be locked into this triple AP situation. So they're going to be forced into something that will likely be not a very good matchup towards the top side of the map, which is really important for Splyce, because something that Vizicsacsi does so well, or often likes to do, is generate pressure in a side lane, but that is often a fault of his as well.
Well, the Syndra is locked in. 2 games played, both of them victories for Nemesis. And the last few seconds of this Phase 1 draft will be the Jarvan, who's likely for Bwipo.
And I'm sure fans have already noticed that you're going to constantly see kind of this trade-off of Lissandra, Zoe, and Syndra. These are kind of like the 3 blind pickable champions for the mid lane. And so when you see Lissandra pushed away, it's either going to be Zoe or Syndra. And over the course of all these playoffs and this best of 5, you're just going to see this merry-go-round of what the mid laners grab that's available.
And now I'm looking at Splyce for jungle picks. Rek'Sai has to be high in the priority list. By going Rek'Sai with the Zoe, not only do you have a very strong 2 versus 2, but you also have an early game impact jungler that goes back to this game 3 that Splyce had against SK, where they drafted the 1-3-1. They had strong early impacts, and they transitioned into a very effective mid game. And I feel like that when you're drafting yourself the Tahm Kench to be able to move along to these side games, side lanes rather, you need to have a good early lead in order to set that up.
I distinctly remember, Vedius, you talking a lot about the Tahm Kench with Splyce's play last weekend, which I want to revisit in game. Bans in phase 2. Pyke and Irelia find themselves removed from the pool, as well as Rakan. So a lot of support's being removed.
Yeah, 2 big comfort picks for Hylissang as well. Note that the Braum, Pyke, and Rakan, all of his most played champions, have now been removed, kind of edging him towards something like the Alistar. Not the best matchup up against Tahm Kench, but the Thresh is another option that this Fnatic bot lane could look towards if they so choose.
It's that kind of idea of Norscaron and Hilly are both playmaking-oriented supports, and while Norscaron can make plays on the Tahm Kench, normally you see it as a defensive lane, and we know that Rekkles and Hilly have been playing all for that all-in. They were the first team in the LEC to pull out the Galley of support, so I hope that this is something like an Alistar paired with another hard carry ADC, but it could also open up the option for Rekkles to look for his Sivir, since the Alistar pick from Splyce on the other side wouldn't deny it.
Okay, so Sivir's available is a signature pick for Rekkles, currently being hovered. You mentioned the Rek'Sai a few moments ago. Vedius, it was locked in there for Xerxes. And as we can see, just a few moments to play out. This Rekkles Sivir, it is one of his all-time most played. It is confirmed. And Hylissang, with his champion pool being pinched, now needs to round out the team composition.
So Fnatic have drafted themselves very solid lanes. They have a very well-rounded comp. They have much more of a 1-4 rather than a 1-3-1, but the cool thing about Karthus is he changes that dynamic a little bit, thanks to his ultimate. But fundamentally, they have very strong team fighting, and if they reinforce this with a ranged support, it's very much about enable Rekkles to do damage from the backline and basically just carry these team fights. But we know that Broxah on the Karthus can have a huge impact in the early game. He's done it multiple times before. If he gets kills early, things are going to be very difficult for Splyce to turn things around.
Well, a few seconds left to play out. The Alistar was secured to join Rekkles' Sivir, and you touched on that, Karthus. Broxah has played that champion 5 times, undefeated, 28-4-28. And to round out the team composition here for Splyce, it's a little bit of a pivot there. It's the Corki that will most likely be played there by Cobby in the bottom lane.
So what is cool is kind of this relationship that Splyce are showing with a lot of their flex picks, not just in this best of 5, but in their previous one. The fact that they had the Vel'Koz, and it was a question, is it going to go to the ADC position or into the mid lane position? There's a very similar thing here with the Zoe and the Corki. You've seen both champions play them in either position, and you can see that they're kind of hot potatoing around about where is it going to land, how are you going to spec your runes.
Question is, what does it do for the draft overall? I see a lot of poke going in, but what do you see, Yavedi?
So, the first thing to know is that we have a Zoe in the bot lane.
Right.
This will be the shift going over towards Splyce. Really interesting decision-making, largely because I think that with the spell shield, it's quite easy to block the Sleepy Trouble bubble, and it's very telegraphed ability as well. So I think it's going to be difficult for them to set that up. Maybe they'll look to try and attack the Alistar during the laning phase. Very interested to see how this lane matchup will play out. But regardless of that, overall team comp from Splyce, a lot of poke, an ability to play on multiple side lanes. I think they have excellent scaling as well. Corki, Zoe, Jace, from afar, they are very difficult to play around. And the one cool thing about this comp is it can be very difficult to engage on because of the amount of mobility, the Tahm Kench, the Jace speed, the Drowsy, all that. So if Fnatic tried to force a fight around Baron or Dragon, fun fact, these guys can just kill you from over the wall. It becomes very difficult to play around those big objectives. So Splyce have basically said, you know what? If you try to force us to fight, we're going to be ready for it.
Oh, so many exciting decisions here for the players to showcase in the first game. Of course, with that Zoe in the bottom lane, Cobby, the man in front for Splyce, is playing his 15th unique champion. And you can see what it's like to play against his Zoe if you tune into Rekkles' POV over at twitch.tv/RiotGames2. Ladies and gentlemen, it's the first game of Fnatic taking on Splyce. Now, I'm instantly going to turn my attention to some of the summoner spells here. 2 teleports on the side of Fnatic, 3 on the side of Splyce. And it's going to be very fun to see how these lanes play out because of that Corki and that Zoe. It's not something that we've seen a whole hell of a lot here.
And I still want to urge people that this probably could have flipped either way. It could have been Humanoid that took the Zoe. It could have been Kabe that took the Corki. I feel like Corki slotted into this well because of its ability to itemize and hex Drinker if he really needs to absorb a lot of that burst damage that would come out of Nemesis' Syndra.
So it's what I find fascinating about this draft from Splyce overall is that Corki lanes you can't really gank or play around, right? There's not much setup. Rek'Sai definitely has a lot of damage with the flash knocker, but because there's no follow-up CC, it's going to be difficult to play the Syndra. Ganking bot is kind of where I'd look at for Splyce, but then Alistar Sivir can be very challenging because of how much disruption Alistar has, the spell shield on Sivir as well. So I kind of look at this comp and I'm thinking, well, they've drafted Rek'Sai, a very typically early game focused jungler, someone who's very invested on getting his lane as a head, and he doesn't have actually that many lanes that he could try to snowball, which makes me wonder what kind of decision-making and pathing Xerxes has in mind with regards to the early game for Splyce.
I feel like their big power window that Splyce really want to attack with this composition is actually post the package, as well as having access to Abyssal Voyage.
Yeah.
The thing about Rek'Sai is that we know that she's incredible at skirmishing, but think of how much control you have over the map, especially the bottom side of the map on Splyce's composition, when you have someone like Zoe, long-range pick potential, when you have someone like Tom Kench, the ability to collapse from afar. So I feel like Splyce will probably play this a bit safe, get all of those ultimates, and then start blitzing into Brox's jungle and try to eat up Fnatic's bottom side of their map. So dragon spawns, especially early Infernals, would be really valuable to them.
Well, the first one is in fact coming up shortly, and you talked a lot about the early game impact. Youngbuck actually had a great tweet earlier today where he talked about the early game decision making and how he's prepared coming into this game. He said, looking forward to the challenge of playing Splyce today. For the first time in a long time, we, being Fnatic, have had to look at themselves, knowing how well Splyce have prepared. And Vedius, we saw this last weekend as well, how Splyce improved upon some of their weaknesses from the regular season, going into that matchup against SK. And there's all eyes going to be on Xerxes, one of the stars of last weekend's series.
Splyce also have this history of taking favorites to 5 games. We saw it last split up against Schalke. We've seen it multiple times against G2 as well. And ultimately, these guys always result in a very exciting series. And I feel like that when you look at this match as well, I know many fans look at Fnatic as very heavy favorites. The Twitter poll was 3-0 in Fnatic's favor. But I feel like that what Fnatic do very well is they're very good at cookie-cutter League of Legends. They have very good players. They draft very standard. They don't do anything surprising or special. You look at that composition, there's nothing new or unique here. This is almost like staple signature picks across the board for Fnatic. And that's one of the good and bad things about them is that when they get their comfort, they are so terrifyingly strong. But at the same time, it allows Splyce to be creative and come up with new ways of dealing with Fnatic because they almost know what to expect.
And then the question is, if Splyce are successful in this game one with more of a creative draft as opposed to what we saw for kind of the cookie-cutter regular season, then it opens up so much harder drafting principles for Fnatic continuing in this best of 5. It's just completely different mind games. But if Splyce fail here, I feel like we're going to go see them return to form, and it's all going to be about the team fighting, the scaling, the classic Splyce that we know works.
Yeah, exactly. It's nice to know that Splyce have another gear to fall back onto. And in the early game, small gold advantage for Fnatic. You can see the CS lead in the bottom lane for Reckless, plus 14. As, whoa, Chachi is going to get solo killed here. Not just yet. Chachi puts the hammer down. Bwipo is fancying a shot, not going to be able to do it, though.
He needs to be very careful. That was like looking for flag, flash auto with the passive.
Yeah, very surprised that Vizichachi even got that low in that 1-versus-1 matchup. Typically, the Jace up against Jarvan can be a little bit more obnoxious for him, but to get that low, the risk of nearly dying, very surprising. Great stuff there from Bwipo.
And what I was saying just before Chachi got dunked on by Bwipo is that Kobe with that teleport is falling behind in CS. I think somewhat to be expected in the early levels. You can see Reckless has already picked up the Fairy Charm and the pickaxe, and Kobe's still sitting on that cooldown, so he still needs to pick up some sort of mana regen before he can come back into lane, and Chachi is able to sidestep the flag and drag, gets a good reverse trade onto Bwipo, and knocks him away.
So what you can see is that the shield from Bwipo actually makes these trades very favorable, and remember that Bwipo will normally put points in his Q, which applies armor shred as well. So every time he lands it and he goes into these long fist fights, he's actually doing a lot more damage in the early game than Jace can, who has to go through all these additional stats and is much harder to trade against.
Hold up.
Well, holding. Devour was used for a few seconds. Kobe forced backwards. Remember, still has not backed. Sitting on that corrupting potion only. Reckless and Hilly are shoving this wave and keeping the pressure on Splyce's bot lane.
Yeah, it's a rough back timer there for Kobe. It's going to feel a lot better when he gets back into his lane. But the core thing about having someone like a Zoe in the bot lane is it's just there for the wave clear. But she needs more points in her abilities before she can contest with Reckless's Sivir's wave clear.
Yeah, the Lost Chapter is a really big item spike as well for Osk. I feel that when you look at Zoe in the bot lane, she's going to struggle. We saw it from Perks very early on in the season as well. And you can just see how Zoe is kind of struggling to even farm underneath her tower for a lot of it. But I love that trade that we saw just before Kobbe went back to base as well, because it demonstrated why Kobbe has to play so safe in the early laning phase. Because Alistair, his ability to all in onto a low mobility champion this early into the game is very easy. So he can set up for early advantages in the bot side of the map.
And of course, Reckless versus Kobbe was one of the pre-match showdowns that was talked a lot about. These stats not necessarily indicative of the game we're going to see because it's a Zoe versus Sivir, but the huge CSD that leans into Reckless's favor is some very impressive statistics.
But you say that, however, it kind of represents what we often see from these two players as well, because when you think about Reckless, he is a guy that's often very lane dominant. He likes to win his lane, whereas Kobbe, he's more of the team fighter. He's much more playing towards the later stages, and you kind of look at this draft and think he's definitely picking more for the team rather than just to make himself stand out.
I personally feel that a lot of that is also on the responsibility of the supports, both Norscaron and Hilly. Hilly, a bit more experience, especially in this specific duo alongside Reckless, I feel is just like super confident, very momentum-based player. And Norscaron, I feel like he's looking at being a Hilly maybe in a couple more splits. Like he's got the playmaking and the talent behind him. Now he just needs the confidence and the experience to match it.
Maybe taking down Hill is saying will be a gigantic step on that path for Skurin. We're 7 minutes in, and Xerxes is getting close to that ultimate. No real attempts from either jungler on the laners. Bwipo's got Flash and Cataclysm available if Xerxes decides to go in.
Ooh.
And there's the Flash already used.
So the thing is you're going to see Xerxes spend a lot of time up near Vizicachi, if not just kind of shadowing underneath him, at least controlling vision. Because for Jace to really be effective in this lane, he does need to have the push and try to abuse a lot of that range, which means he's going to be forward in his lane, he's going to expose himself. So Xerxes is going to constantly be shadowing underneath this, not just looking for kill opportunity, but to keep Chachi safe.
Now, if anybody watched Fnatic last weekend, Bwipo survived a number of 1v2 attempts. Does he have the moves to pull this one off? The wave is pushing in now, and Xerxes can't really decide if he wants to go for the tower dive.
The dangerous thing about going for a tower dive is that Karthus is now level 6. The ultimate can swing a dive very rapidly, just as we saw last week. And I think that Xerxes is respecting that, especially when Bwipo has plenty of health. He is surprisingly tanky this early in the game. And so both junglers will just trade blue buffs for the time being. This will force Kobbe and Norscaron to play a little bit more defensively than they already have been because of the risk of a potential dive.
And both teams have just been really good at recognizing where their strong side of the map is and just making sure that they're playing to it. Now, I feel like this favors Fnatic slightly just because Splice are a team that have one of the average longest game times, and the sheer scaling potential of a Karthus and a Sivir, again, on parity if they're not put behind, is just absolutely devastating. So I'd like to see Splice, now that they have access to the package, access to the Abyssal Voyage soon, start to speed up the tempo of this game and try to throw some wrench into
the pings, they're coming.
Well, Kobbe and Norscaron going to try to turn this one around. Here comes Humanoid, throws down the package from the Valkyrie. Reckless forced to flash defensively. Hilly's holding on to his for now. Kobbe's trying to step forward. He's got an Ignite to use as well. Battlestar puts the damage down. Hilly's down to 200 HP. First Blood's available, secured, picked up by Kobbe and Splice.
Very surprised that Fnatic didn't respect that. They had vision in the river. They should have seen the movement down. But what it results in is a big win for Splice. They find First Blood, they equalize the gold, and they shut down the support.
And this is the window that we're looking for. Norscaron now has access to the Abyssal Voyage. It's level 6. So you can see rinse, repeat plays exactly like that. Splice should have total control over this river. That makes it very dangerous for Reckless and Hilly to be that far forward.
Well, really, really nicely done. Splice managed to pick up First Blood in 3 out of the 4 games last weekend. They do it again today. I believe Humanoid walked behind the Dragon Pit, avoiding that pink ward in the river. So Splice stay even on gold, but remember, Kobbe is down 30 CS. He is still behind 200 gold from Reckless because of the good CS numbers. So Splice have done a great job of negating some of that early weakness, Frosk, but they still need to do a little bit more to ramp Kobbe up.
But it's also, you know, what does 30 CS mean between a Sivir and a Zoe, especially when you have a person like Corki on your team? It's not like we expect Kobbe to be like the ridiculous damage that comes out from this team. Corki can do that in the late game. Sivir's going to get the CS for free anyway because she's just going to be a farmhouse. While this looks bad on paper, I actually don't think it hurts in the long run between these two champions and the responsibilities to their teams.
Well, very nice. And of course, we've got many, many minutes to watch how this plays out. The minion wave is going to help protect Reckless as he gets caught by a Sleepy Trouble bubble. And Broxer looking to set up his first gank, waiting in the tri-bush, but I believe he was spotted up by a ward. Kobbe and Norscaron. There's only one flash between them in the bottom lane, and Broxer's unable to find any potential follow-ups here. So it's just push City as Bwipo is now going to be punished. Here comes Xerxes. He's got the flash, he's got the chilling smite, he's got Void Rush as well. Cataclysm comes down, Requiem will follow, but Chachi survives thanks to the stopwatch, and that is a gigantic cooldown from Broxah that will not find a kill.
Beautiful stuff from Splyce. They're continuing to find these early leads. We asked this question at the beginning of the game, but Fnatic want to try and answer back as Rekkles will find nothing. Splyce slowly starting to accrue this gold lead, and again, one of the questions we asked was, what kind of Splyce will show up? Will they try and go to comfort? Will they try and scale? Or will they look to match Fnatic in the early game? And so far, they've made a package play, they've made a successful gank, and they are 2 kills up over Fnatic.
And it looks like they're succeeding where Vitality really couldn't. Vitality threw everything in the kitchen sink to try to break Fnatic, especially Bwipo, up in this top side, and they just couldn't make it count. Chachi, on the other hand, did make it count, but can he snowball the game where Cabochard couldn't?
Well, Visit Chachi 0-0-1 got that CS advantage and sitting pretty comfortable up against Bwipo. While Xerxes was picking up the Rift Herald in the top lane, down in the bottom, Fnatic were able to secure the Mountain Drake. They also got themselves 2 plates from the bottom tower. They've got 1 plate in the middle tower, so Fnatic sitting pretty happy with that plate gold. But you can see Xerxes and Humanoid cheating towards the top half of the map, while Chachi's looking to even out the total plates killed by putting a lot of damage on this top outer.
Yeah, if our observers could very quickly toggle the vision, you can actually just see the differences. We won't have time as Xerxes goes for a gank.
Yes, he does. Bwipo's in so much trouble. Void Rush should just be about enough. Visit Chachi takes down Bwipo, and Splyce are absolutely dominating the kill count. They are in control of the enemy champions, and they're up 500 kill.
And this sums up perfectly the kind of tendency differences, or something you can expect from Fnatic. Remember what we said, that Fnatic is very cookie cutter. You can almost know what to expect from this team. And one of the things they often do is play around bot lane. And the reason why I wanted to highlight the vision was because you can see everything is invested towards the bot side of the map for Fnatic. They drafted Zoe Tom Kench, a very defensive lane, and while they did find a Corki package play, the whole game plan for Splyce has actually been to play around topside, try and get Vizichachi ahead on the Jace, and so far they are finding success, whereas Fnatic is finding very little.
It's also just a great read from Splyce to say, okay, just leave bot lane, let's throw everything up into the top side, let's try to break the tower as quickly as possible. That said, because it was a Mountain Dragon, in fact, double Mountain, I don't know if this is going to pay off unless they can really get this rolling and try to snowball into much more Rift Herald control when that objective does spawn.
Well,
which, there it goes.
Fortunately, it is available, so the plate gank going to be used in the mid lane. Bring that Rift Herald up. Tower First Blood is available in the top lane here for Chachi. 1 big boop will take down at least 1 of those plates. A couple more hits. Oh, so nicely done. Humanoid just gets out of range of Hylissang, so he's able to back away, get some plate gold, and Splyce continue to stay 1,000 gold up as we get to 15 minutes on the clock. Bwipo's not done yet. Cataclysm is available. Chachi's run out of mana, though. Now, Requiem is on cooldown. It's not available for use for a few more moments. Bwipo's going to get turned around. Here comes Kobe. He teleports in. Sleepy, Trouble, Bubble. Paddle Star's not going to be enough, but the Void Rush surely will. There goes Xerxes. Dashes in, bites down. Spin for the win. Xerxes picks up the 4th kill for Splyce.
And Bwipo just needs to lose gracefully at this point. Way overforced that fight. I felt like he was trying to look for the Requiem cooldown. It just wasn't there in time. And unfortunately, he just looks like a fool that far overextended in the lane.
Ends up being first tower going in favor of Fnatic, but Splyce immediately trade. And Frost, I completely agree with you. I can understand what Bwipo was trying to do. We can see the Requiem was up 1 or 2 more hits. That would have been a kill, but he didn't respect the teleport on Kobe. He didn't realize that Xerxes, funnily enough, playing towards topside as he has the entire game, and it meant that there was no way for him to escape. Fnatic find themselves down another kill, and their top lane is now 0-3, where this Rek'Sai and Jace duo is only getting stronger and stronger.
And frankly, the only play that I've been a bit 50-50 on that Splyce have made this game so far was that Rift Herald play in the mid lane. I feel like they didn't have proper information about where Fnatic was to make it count, but you know, if they're able to push this down, send all 5 members now because they've unlocked the entire map, then it won't matter.
That's so interesting. The way that these lanes have played out, Vizichachi doing so well in the top lane with the help of Xerxes. He's up 40 CS. He's 1-0-2 on Jace. He played it last weekend. He went unkilled the entire game. So 3-0-3 in that performance. Now on the flip side, Rekkles is sitting up 40 CS in the bot lane on his most played professional champion at 45 games. And we need to see which lever can be utilized to help the team pick up the win.
Now, one of the cool things about Splice's composition is the triple teleport that they're running. This means they can send anyone to a side lane. You'll notice they've currently got Zoe in the mid, but Corki is up top side, Vizicachi is bot. The reason why they've put the Jace down in the bot lane is because his TP is on cooldown, and Drake will be the next big objective that both these teams will look to play around. Corki with his TP can just safely sit at the top side, whereas they don't want to send Reckless up there, because they won't have the wave clear, and he's the only one with teleport. Nemesis has a heal, so they can't send him up there. So Jarvan is just kind of haphazardly trying to clear waves, moving with his team, and Splice are the ones that should have the better position right now to set up for this objective and force Fnatic into an awkward situation.
And of course, you can see the amount of gold that each individual has accrued over the course of the game. And the positioning around Dragon has already started. Requiem is up for Broxy. He doesn't yet have level 11. But 2 Mountain Drakes going the way of Fnatic is not something Splice want to abide by, which is why they are contesting the vision and trying to challenge.
We've heard professionals all over the globe talk about how broken Mountain Drake can be in that it unlocks early Baron access, especially when you have a Syndra, her burst damage, that you basically never be able to outsmite it, and then having double Mountain on top. But the thing is that Splice need to be very patient and controlled when setting up their 1-3-1. They have all the tools that they can force Fnatic to not even look for the fight, to possibly get the Drake for free, but Fnatic hard want to force this fight. That's where their composition feels comfortable.
Notice how sneaky Fnatic are being right now. They know that Splice invested all of their vision towards the top side of the river, but a lot of this bottom side is actually very dark, and Fnatic were utilizing that to try and find a pick onto Chachi. But now the Drake is up. Splice have control over the river. They're starting this one off.
All right, Splice trying to use some of that poke to keep Fnatic at bay. Not fully committing to the objective nor the fight. Backing away as Nemesis avoids the Sleepy Trouble bubble.
Note how Fnatic have the bot wave pushed and no one has it in control right now. Fnatic look for an engage.
All right, Xerxes going to be the target. He gets jumped on, run down, and easily killed. Splice were backing away, and Xerxes did not get the memo.
Now, they will make a nice trade here by getting decent damage on the mid lane tower, possibly the mid lane tower. There they go. That feels good. But this was Splice just not being patient enough with their composition and possibly getting more for it.
That was so cheeky! To the skies, gets Chachi out the Cataclysm, but it simply is not enough. Another isolated death, just about, as Norskeren completes the Abyssal Voyage. Chachi caught out, ultimate from Norskeren used. Yes, Splice got the tower, but Fnatic got the second mountain.
And the thing is that Splice had optimal setup for the vast majority, but let's backtrack to when we said Fnatic were being very sneaky. They set up those control walls towards the bot side, which meant that Splice could not confidently push out that wave. There was still a tower there, which meant that they never had priority on the bottom wave, and the moment that no one was going to deal with it, Splice split apart, Fnatic engaged, and then they end up being the ones coming out on top.
And now my concern is, Vedius, is that you have a team that has double Mountain and great Baron burn if they ever approach it. This is like a huge target on the map that when Baron spawns, Fnatic can very easily pull Splice in because Splice has to answer it, and a 1-3-1 composition can really struggle around the Baron unless they land massive poke before the fight happens.
Good thing this is a poke comp then, isn't it, Frost? Because you've also got the Jace, the Corki, the
we just saw them try to set up the 1-3-1 for the Dragon and they lost because they got picked.
Yeah, I completely agree with you, but hang on, right now we might be seeing another fight. Bwipo.
Let's see, Bwipo actually gets pulled backwards. Not going to be enough just yet. I think that was the Jace hammer that may have just knocked him sideways.
I fully agree with you. I think that the Baron right now is optimally set up for Fnatic, especially when they're going to be looking to team fight, and that'll be the prime objective that they utilize to force those. But the amount of poke from Splice scares me a lot, and I think that Fnatic have to show a lot of respect and have to have a lot of patience when they're playing around this objective.
Well, let's see how they do, because Baron hasn't spawned yet, and the game has been about pushing these towers down. 2 for Fnatic, 3 for Splice. Reckless is running, trying to chase down Vizicachi, who uses the Mercurial Hammer to knock away the threat. 220 CS for Reckless in 19.5 minutes. He's got an Essence Reaver and a Rapid Fire Cannon, and this is the champion that he has carried many a game for. Broxah seems to be cheating to the lane where Reckless is pushing, and we've seen Broxah invading to steal multiple buffs in a row as we now crest the 20-minute mark.
That's been the MO for Broxah all game. They knew that there was a possibility of a repeat gank on Reckless without his flash after the package, and immediately Karthus was down there forcing everything. But Splice, every time Fnatic make a move, they do happen to have an answer. They took the Dragon, Splice traded it for the mid tower, everyone went bottom, they managed to get Chachi kills, so it's how will Splice continue to react to this Fnatic team?
So I'm looking at the mini-map constantly to see where the vision is being prioritized, and you'll notice that Splice have actually invested a lot of vision towards the bot side of the map. One of the main reasons for that was because Vizicachi, his goal was to push towards that tier 2. Once they noticed Fnatic starting to group up around the Baron, they immediately had to back off. So you'll notice that all the blue side vision started to get invested up towards the top side. Splyce were like, no, 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 no. I have to stop this. So they immediately moved back to mid. And while they have control over the river, Fnatic still have semblance of vision around this Baron area. And Splyce, they're kind of forced into this awkward situation now where their lane assignments weren't optimal. They kind of split up all over the map. So now they're starting to regain control slowly but surely. But this is just buying more time for Fnatic.
And of course, it's going to be up to Splyce's mid-game now, moving towards the 2, 3, 4 items late-game phase to show that they can continue this great performance. During the draft, we talked about the Rek'Sai, and we asked what sort of impact it was going to have. Xerxes, 2-1-1. He's been able to get Vizicachi to his second item with a gigantic 55 CS, and he's unlocked this Jace, who can help to get Splyce to the next few objectives and set up this map control. And then, of course, it's going to come down to the vision, which the observers have been highlighting, showing where the teams are contesting, and Fnatic, they're regaining mid-control.
Now, one of the things we have to remember is that Fnatic wanted Splyce originally in round 1 of the playoffs. Fnatic said, oh, we can't have them, I guess we'll take Vitality. But stylistically, they felt that they were always going to be better than Splyce. And the reason for that was because they felt their mid-game was just better. It was this point in the game where Fnatic felt stronger. And it's the decision-making that Splyce now have to choose to showcase why this was a mistake for Fnatic to want to try and fight them early.
And that poke damage now needs to be on point like you were talking about, Vedius. There goes one.
All right, Sleepy Trouble Bubble. That will find Brox. So Baron's going down to Hop. There's a stun connecting onto Northscare, and Fnatic haven't healed away from the pit yet. They may have got the objective they wanted as the teleport's been committed. Nemesis takes a Prey Seeker to the face, and at least one of the split push threats has been pulled back.
Now, the logic from Fnatic here was that Humanoid was in the bot lane. They wanted to try and drag him up, force one of these teleports out from the side of Splyce, so they started off the Baron. But Splyce know we have a lot of poke. We can be patient. We can take our time. So they never felt the need to rush. They only TP'd in after they secured the objective, meaning that Splyce still come out on top and have one teleport left available as Kobe just used his other one.
I was just going to point that out. It's the fact that normally in a play like that from Fnatic, like just force the TP and disengage, they got exactly what they wanted. But it's the fact that Splyce had 3 teleports on the team. They can continue to do that so many times, save for now fighting for the Infernal.
All right, the last time this Dragon was started by Splyce, Fnatic were able to use some sneakiness and sneak up from the bottom. Vizicachi's not with the team. He's late to the party. Dragon secured by Brox and Fnatic. There's the flag, the drag, the dunk. Splyce have once again botched it at the Dragon. The stun onto Northscare. That's a Drake and 2 quick kills.
Just freeze frame. You never, as a Splyce fan, want to see your team fighting on the Dragon against this type of wombo combo composition from Fnatic. Every time Fnatic are going to take that fight.
This fight was so bad for Splyce. Fnatic are now in a prime position to kick off the Baron, and there's only 3 members of Splyce alive. Xerxes still up. Can he look for a steal, or will they look for another fight?
CP Trouble Bubble goes into the pit as well. Oh, here comes the burst damage! It's stolen! Vizicachi, you hero! It is the most farmed member of Splyce. He picks up the Baron secure. Now Xerxes looking to hunt down Hill, is saying there's no support for the support of Fnatic, and he's going to try to escape. The chains will buy just a couple seconds of time. And Xerxes continues to chase, gets an unburrow, and a furious bite kills Hillisang. Splyce take Baron.
Woo! No, they don't, Trevor.
Fnatic got it.
Fnatic got Baron.
It's okay, Trevor.
Thank you.
It's okay.
Thank you.
It's okay.
Chachi got a kill. Chachi got a kill.
Chachi dived into the pit and got multiple kills. It was a chaotic fight, quick shot. It happens to the best of us.
It's okay. That'll go on the highlight reel. Your career will be cursed for the rest of your life. It's fine. Shake it off.
I'm so sorry.
All right, so
Splyce with a hero kills.
When we get into the start of this fight, what you'll notice is that all of them are just grouped inside the pits, and every single one of them can eat all of this AoE damage from the side of the Jace. Just way too much damage from the AoE from both the Zoe and the Jace. It ends up being a clean-up fight.
And that's the best case scenario, is that Splyce were able to eliminate a lot of those Barons. And because they can continue to try to split up the map with so much mobility, they can possibly stall out this big position of power that Fnatic have. But for how much longer? This is still double Mountain on an Infernal with a 5v5 oriented composition. This is a very scary position for Splyce to be in.
It's still even gold as far as the teams are concerned, but those 3 Dragons helping Fnatic push down another tower. Also 3 items completed here for Reckless, nearly 3 for Vizicachi. Splyce look to pick and choose their fights. They're continuing the split push game as they have multiple teleports. but it's really the fights around the objectives that is costing Splice control.
Yeah, it's just funny because what Fnatic are letting Splice do is they let them... Ooh, hang on, fight.
All right, once again, another follow-up. Whippo decides to hold on to the Cataclysm. Not going to be able to find anything else. Splice are able to disengage, but it's another tower to Fnatic.
Yeah, so the use of the ultimate from Sivir there was just to force Splice back, and now as a 5-man unit, they're just sieging, they're brute forcing their way into Splice's base. They're saying, you have to group, you have to fight us, otherwise you're going to lose everything.
3 items Sivir, as well as Double Mountain, as well as Baron empowered minions. Fnatic make the push down mid lane and get the supers.
But it's only 1 empowered recall, which is why I still like this at least option from Splice. Like, okay, what can we at least get here? They tried to look for trading for inhib, but Fnatic smartly protected Nemesis. They got the empowered recall off, and they were able to get a member back, which meant that Chachi couldn't try to trade for the inhib and must respect.
Now I'm kind of looking at some of these items across the board and thinking like scalings. It's something that we've talked a decent amount about. With Fnatic in regards to their team fighting, you've obviously got the Sivir, who's now at 3.5 items, looking very poised and ready to just melt through this entire Splice lineup. So at this point, if Splice find themselves in a 5v5, they will lose. That is just without a doubt, that will happen. Whereas for Splice, they actually have a lot of their poke kit ready. The 2 items have been completed for Humanoid. You now have both the Morellonomicon and the Luden's Echo, and double lethality items along with the Black Cleaver and now finish for Vizichachi. So if Splice just play to their win conditions, if they just play around finding poke, looking for picks, then that is the best scenario that they want to set up for themselves, as opposed to Fnatic, who are just constantly looking to fight you.
It's also just making sure that they're playing these fights a bit slower by disengaging first. Fnatic have so much hard engage tools riddled throughout their kit, so if they ever get a fight, they're going to force it, but it feels like it's been Splice making the mistakes, allowing themselves to get engaged on. If you're going to play this type of composition, it is much more difficult to execute on, but you got to play it right in playoffs.
Yeah, unfortunately, this is a team that has shown the coordination to be on point. You can see the gold swings as the game is still close. It's 700 gold at 27 minutes. That doesn't matter. What it feels like Splice have done well to me has been applying pressure on the side lanes. Unfortunately, Fnatic have equaled, if not bettered it, because Reckless continues to be a threat. 293 CS helps Fnatic secure the 6th tower of the game, and his Sivir has just been used to unlock each lane. Now, the same is true for Chachi. He's just about to flame Horizon Whippo nearly 100 CS up, and he has been the one shining light for the entire Splice squad when it comes to really unlocking these side lanes, and Xerxes and Noskeren can try to help him with their Rek'Sai and the Tahm Kench.
Don't get me wrong, you know, Chachi's been good, but it feels like Splice almost just kind of forget that the composition that they're playing and what its win conditions are. It's almost like they go back to that instinct, and that's the team fight, that they're a 5v5 team, that it comes down to the clutch plays and the miracle moments. Because if you look at this game, it's really just been 2 dragon fights that have decided the entire thing.
Yep.
So
Yeah.
if Splice look back at this, the footage is fairly easy. Okay, guys, we had a 1-3-1 composition. Probably shouldn't have fought at that mountain and that infernal.
What I like about that, though, Frosk, is that could be, like, even if Splice go on to lose this game, they may try commit a similar draft because it was decision-making around those objectives and not necessarily bigger problems. You can theorize that those problems are easier to solve between games.
Maybe, but I feel like the mental games and what we've seen from Splice in the past is once you have one failed composition, they kind of go back to that comfort pick. It felt like Fnatic were saying, okay, we're against Splice. Pick scaling, pick 5v5, we're just going to out-team fight them, where Splice like, no, we'll try our new composition, our leveled up, our superior evolved form, and it just didn't work. So Splice need to go into the mental game. Do we try to do it again, possibly go down 2 games, or do we go back to the 5v5, which is exactly where Fnatic wanted to be in the first place?
Now, while the game kind of slows down and Baron is kind of wrapping up, I feel like Whippo is setting a really bad example for solo queue players. Given he is a 0-4 job and he's just got full damage.
Hoping you wouldn't notice that.
He's literally, like, this is not a bad Jarvan build as far as Jarvan builds go, but in the situation that he's in, his responsibility is to be a frontline, a tank, and engage. Speaking of engage, Fnatic are looking for another one.
Here comes Whippo, gets the Cataclysm down, and there's the damage. It works out this time as Kobe's not even able to use that flash. The Devour's used once again. Norskeren's running away with the grey health. Boomerang Blade shuts him down. Humanoid sidesteps. One more knocker from Whippo, and he's able to escape with the Valkyrie. But Reckless is able to put damage on the tower. Now Chachi is going to try and chase down. There goes Whippo. Takes a shot from the Death Ray, and still not enough to kill Humanoid. The heal from the steps. The fountain keeps him alive. Humanoid's going to Velk forward. Gets the reply. Fnatic, you chase too far.
You tell him, Humanoid, get off your lawn.
It ends up being a 2-for-2 right now. And Splice, they don't actually lose any big objectives just as the Baron spawned. If they hadn't found those kills, this would have been an easy Baron secure for Fnatic, but they overstate, they overcommit, and now Splice, they can stall out a little longer.
And I'm going to say that's also a bad example for solo queue players chasing for the kills when Baron's available.
But it also does give you a very clear picture of what Fnatic's mindset, mentality, and kind of momentum is behind them. If they're making crazy plays like that, that is not where you want to be for Splice. I mean, yeah, it might feel good because less setup time around Baron, maybe they get a chance back into this game, but that's also a very confident Fnatic charging you.
All right, speaking of confidence, 2 members of Fnatic still dead. Splice has started this one off.
Well, don't get this one wrong,
They
Trevor.
might get this.
Splice are on the Baron.
Yeah, they got it.
They've got this one secured. There's simply no contest. Splice stay in this game. It feels like Splice are making so many good decisions, but with this Baron and the ability to defend the pushes from Fnatic, they can regain control.
Underneath their own arrogance there, Fnatic collapsed and lost the Baron. Won't be diving that Nexus Tower again.
Absolutely not. It's chasing, over-chasing, and look, all credit to Humanoid as well. He sidestepped a number of skill shots and damaging abilities to make it to Fountain, and then punished the over-eager Fnatic. It is an even gold game at 57 minutes. 3 or 4 items being picked up here, as Xerxes will get run down. Void Rush will buy some time. It's Reckless 6, 1, and 3 right now. And he is a monster. 4 completed items.
See, I'm really upset now because I was going to do a really cool explanation of how to set up with a Baron on the enemy base, how to play a 1-3-1, and then Xerxes dies. And now Fnatic are the ones sieging onto the base of Splice. They're the ones that have the numbers advantage. They still have... Well, they've actually used a decent number of ultimates, but importantly, Bwippos is available. So Fnatic, they could just look for another engage.
Yeah, they can. And of course, Fnatic were able to find that pick on Xerxes from some more cheeky warding. They were able to get in and surprise Xerxes in his own jungle, thanks to some very good, you know, vision wards and managing to catch him by surprise. 5-2-1. Xerxes Rek'Sai has been extremely pivotal in helping Splice get to the point where they are. And with Baron, they can still stall this game out.
It feels like when Fnatic don't have access to the Sivir ultimate, that they're not as confident in their other hard engage tools. Because while we do talk about all of the hard engage that's riddled throughout Fnatic's composition, you did mention earlier that Splice also have so many disengage tools.
Yeah.
And it feels like they really rely on that Sivir movement speed to gap close so they can start landing their more targetable abilities, getting that Alistar in there, getting the Jarvan. Because right there we saw, as soon as the Reckless ultimate was gone, they're like, okay, just back off, wait for that cooldown, then we'll pop it and run them down on an elongated lane.
Okay, I need to talk a little bit more about elongated lanes, because with 7 towers killed by Fnatic, 6 for Splice, how do these teams now regain control? This Baron feels like a tempo Baron for Splice. It's not necessarily going to allow them to take control of the game. Mountain Drake's up in 20 seconds. That'll be followed by Elder. And how do these teams utilize either that Elder or the next Baron to then win the game?
So, before we get into that, I just kind of want to set the scene because the situation that both teams find themselves in right now is as the game gets longer, it gets harder for Fnatic to siege because of the amount of damage and utility that Splice's composition has, which means that every time they want to take the next tower, they have to fight.
Oh no.
Speaking of...
I'm going to use some of that tool. Noskaran with the Tom Kench once again showing up, saving Kobe's life, but it was at the cost of his flash.
So, Splice want to avoid things like that, but basically, what Fnatic need to do is they need to be willing to commit to a fight. And what we're seeing from Fnatic is a lot of confidence, a lot of willing to make these plays. Whereas Splice, what they need to do is just push out their waves. They need to get into a situation where they can just get some vision on their flanks to avoid Jarvan engages with the Sivir, and then they allow Vizicsacsi with the Baron to set up this kind of a play where they slowly work their way towards the enemy base. And you've also got to remember the amount of teleports and ultis they have to sneak into Fnatic's base as well.
Hold that thought. The stun manages to connect. There's not enough support just yet from Fnatic. They're going to try to chase. Bwipo picks up another BF sword, by the way. He's 2.5 items in comparison to Chachi's 4 right now. Chachi was able to brute force that inhibitor in the top lane.
But this works because there's not a big monster objective that it was available on the map for Fnatic to kind of pull, as Ender says, kind of like the gravity. It all comes around the Baron, it all comes around the Elder Drake. With these 2 monster objectives that will be spawning next time, it gets much harder for Splice to play out this map. They need to be much more cognizant about their waves, and frankly, it's just harder for them to execute on setup versus Fnatic, which press R, run at someone, destroy them.
Yeah.
Especially when your press R now has a Bloodthirster as well. 5 items completed for Reckless, 400 CS at 35 minutes. The late game Sivir win condition may be enabled, but Can Hylissang make it out? Yeah, the rest of Fnatic are starting to come up. There's a teleport being committed. Vizichachi's going to throw down those accelerated shock blasts on the side. Norskera's being burned low. Brox is killed in and amongst the pit. The river is now the battle scene. 1-2 quick kills for Fnatic. Requiem gets a good amount of damage down, but Fnatic are simply stronger in these 5v5s. Kobe now forced to use the stolen flash. He's looking to get run down. Reckless wants to cut off Humanoid. Gonna get the boomerang blade as well as the ricochet. Kill secured. Bwippo's going to start the recall. And will Kobe be able to finish? No, he's decided to back away.
This Dragon Pit is just the Thunderdome from Splyce, and they never come out of it.
No, definitely not. Nemesis is able to pick up the kill. Look at those death timers. 46 seconds for multiple members of Splyce. Bwippo's just picked up the GA and will defend the supers in the top lane, but Fnatic are pushing into the base.
And it's one of those things where we talked about it earlier. Fnatic, they realized about halfway through the split that they were trying to do too many things. They were trying too many different strategies, and they just kind of need to go back to their roots. And again, their composition on paper seems quite bread and butter. Press the engage buttons and just go. But they're so good at doing it that it's very difficult for teams to challenge. And every time Splyce make a small mistake, yes, Fnatic just go for the play.
Press the button and go. They're going for the win. That's a stun onto Xerxes. Double Nexus turrets down. There's simply not enough pressure. Reckless alone should be able to finish this one off. The Nexus goes down. Fnatic press the win button.
It's just a Sivir comp, Vegas.
It's just a Sivir comp.
It's just a Sivir comp.
And the thing is, the onus was on Splyce to play towards their win conditions in this. It was, Fnatic's win condition was very obvious. It was, we want to fight, right? And the great thing for Splyce is that they found early leads, they had a strong split pusher, and they had the ability to play around the map. But unfortunately, they got baited into two very crucial fights, as you talked about, Frost, where they just fell apart, and Fnatic were able to constantly find those big fights. Reckless ended 8-1-4 at the end of that game, and it doesn't matter. Every time Splyce tried to split up, it doesn't matter. Fnatic just pressed the go button, and they found those fights every time.
It's like they can't be something that they're not. Splyce tried to play these 1-3-1, and yeah, it worked against a team like SK that didn't have the experience, but a team like Fnatic, who just knows their win conditions, is in their pocket of exactly where they want to play. Splyce can't just try to do something that they're not comfortable doing.
And there was simply not enough pressure on Reckless. I mean, he got yet another win, 28 wins in his 45 games on the champion. That Sivir was hugely influential. But I really, really like what I saw from Splyce. They did play the early game well. Xerxes was impactful again on that Rek'Sai. I like the lane decisions, but those dragon calls, I'm heartbroken when I see them, especially when in the same game, the same type of problem costs control.
And now the question is, how does this change in a best of 5? Are we going to see Splyce try to run the exact same type of composition, kind of the mid-game, 1-3-1, the ability to snowball off of multiple lanes, or possibly giving all of their resources to Chachi? Or are we going to see big 5v5 team fighting, scaling ADCs? Because I think that will tell a lot. That will tell Fnatic, have we broken them? Are you now forced to play our game?
We will find out later. Right now, Fnatic, they kicked off the series with a win, and for more, let's leave it to the analyst desk. Welcome back to the LEC studio. In tonight's showdown between Fnatic and Splyce, this is the 100th game of the LEC Spring Split. And to commemorate the special time, Broxah has won the vote, and he will be available to your viewing pleasure over at twitch.tv/RiotGames2. Quick update, Splyce, because they lost game 1, have side selection. They chose blue side coming into this game, forcing Fnatic onto red. Red side Fnatic has a win-loss of 2 wins and 5 losses over the 7 times Fnatic have played it this split. Interesting tidbit.
So what you're telling me is that percentages of Splyce winning this game have just skyrocketed.
Astronomical. Start buying into that stock.
Now, of course, before we go into astronomical leaps there, I just like the little tidbits of info. How does the draft priority change now that the teams are on opposite sides? And we've seen how impactful that Karthus became in the late stages of the game.
And it's Karthus is a shared champion. Again, we said it in game number 1. It needs to be repeated in game number 2. Both Xerxes and Broxah play it. Fnatic have shown such a prevalence towards the priority pick. Eventually, Vitality did have to ban it away from them. So the question is, do Fnatic ban it from red side because they know that Splyce could also priority pick it, or do Splyce just take it off the table?
It's a good question. The one thing I am expecting is a Rakan ban. I feel like directing that towards the bot side of the map is definitely something that you want to throw towards Fnatic, considering how consistent Hillsang is on it. And I kind of look back at last week when Splyce were playing on the blue side. They valued things like Akali bans, Zoe bans, Ryze bans, arguably very specific, but they're already taking a big shift away from what they've done today, where there's no Sylas, there's no Braum being taken off the board yet, Frost.
I'm curious if with a Vayne ban, this puts priority on Draven to go up. I really like Vayne into Draven because she can push him out of his axis. When he goes to pick him up, you just condemn him away.
If I'm the Draven, I really like playing into a Vayne because I'm like...
You would think, yeah. But the last time it happened, Reckless went for the Vayne into the matchup. And yeah, he did get ganked level 2, but it's just kind of a fun interaction.
That's very, very true. Now, the Sylas ban will come through from the side of Splyce. And I think what this says is that Splyce don't like prioritizing or valuing the Sylas. And on a blue side, that's very surprising because he should be, right now on the current patch, like the first pick, the highest priority in the current meta.
Yeah, Sylas is very rarely banned on blue side. In fact, before this matchup of our 2 previous best of 5s, he was only banned once on blue side. He's almost a perma-ban red side. So that actually puts huge concerns for me. If Splyce are banning it from blue side, can they not play it?
Well, that's a question we'll find out as the series plays out. A number of high-priority picks open and available. The likes of Hecarim, Morgana, Kayle is up. And I think Fnatic banned the the Jace, because of Bwipo performance on the last game. It is a Braum lock-in here for Norskeren. And now Fnatic will have a couple seconds to respond. Last weekend, Nemesis got a pentakill on the Kayle, and it is locked in once again.
And Vedi, I know that you feel very strongly about what the decision is to blind pick Kayle.
Yeah, because I think Kayle does have answers. And so, Enda talked about it earlier in the day. The thing about blind picking her is it's, once she gets to a level point, she's very strong. However, you can pick champions that can like dive her, gank her, match up very well into her. Hecarim top is, I know, a champion that just naturally does very, very well into her. But obviously she gets to a late, in pro play, teams aren't always that aggressive. Teams don't always find those leads. They don't always snowball as effectively, which means that Fnatic must have a lot of confidence if they're going to draft this. And you'll notice that they've actually paired it with the Rek'Sai, which is exactly what they did against Vitality in their game 3 last time.
And it can offer a really nice bridging point because Rek'Sai is strong in early game and mid game to help Kayle kind of like ease off that she doesn't have to be the big carry point to that game and then take over late. And what it does is it forces Splyce to respond by having late game insurance that allows them to pick up things like the Tristana, which isn't just a comfort pick for Kobbe, but now it's like, okay, you got the big scary AoE crit machine, possibly, depending on how he builds. We also have one too.
Yeah, and of course you talked a lot about how CC can counter Kayle. With a Braum as well as a Skarner, there's a whole lot of CC tools that can try to control their champion. Xerxes has played Skarner once this split. It was a victory. He went 0, 2, and 13. And as we enter phase 2, you can see that Sivir was secured by Reckless. It was just a Sivir comp in game 1 that helped Fnatic pick up the win. And in round 2, Corki finds himself banned already.
And these are going to be free Sivir pickup pretty much every single time for Reckless because it's a priority pick of a Braum. It was an Alistar ban, or an Alistar given away for free because it was a Kench pick in game number 1. And Alistar is really the support that terrifies Sivir because of his interaction with her spell shield. If Splyce want to try to avoid the Sivir without banning it. They need to put higher priority on a different support champion to deny it from Reckless.
Ooh, I like the Kennen ban. With so many top laners already taken off the board, Kennen kind of rises in priority. What does surprise me is over in other regions, champions like Vladimir are insanely high in terms of the priority list, and I wonder if Splyce will look in that direction. They could then maybe consider a melee, an AD champion in the mid lane, but it's always a bit of a gamble taking an AD champion into Kayle, largely because they're often melee, and they can be target ganked by things like the Rek'Sai, just as we saw last week when Fnatic played up against a Yasuo in the mid lane.
All right, I'm seeing the hover. I don't want to get too excited yet. That's why never talk about hovers. The last second pivot is the Thresh, which is a champion we talked a lot about in game one once a support pool was more heavily pinched.
I'm still very excited by a Thresh, especially on Haley's Thresh. And the cool thing about Thresh Sivir, especially if this Kayle gets going and the ability to play a side lane, is that when you park the Sivir in a mid lane to just kind of hoover up all of that farm, one of the problems is that Sivir doesn't have things like an Ezreal and a Tristana and a Lucian, you know, that safety mechanism to dash away. So she needs extra things like a Lantern to safely push up and have more map pressure and map control. He did.
Did they just pick Sion?
They did, followed by Rise. Explain the confusion.
So the reason why I'm confused is because now if I'm Fnatic, I immediately put Kayle into that Sion lane. And I'm like, this is the freest lane I've ever had. You might be able to push me underneath my tower, but you're never going to kill me. You're never going to dive me. I'm at no risk right now. And I just feel like it's a super safe lane to give Kayle all this free scaling.
Unless it's mind games and it's Rise top and Sion mid.
Well, we're going to find out in a few seconds. How do Fnatic respond? Because in order to agree to that duel, you have to do the pivot. They're instead going to lock in the Cho'Gath. And that is a very different style of team composition that I'm used to seeing on this patch.
So what this is saying is that Nemesis is the confident Kayle player. They want to keep the jungle mid synergy of the Rek'Sai and the Kayle together. I wouldn't be surprised to see Broxer invest time there, just like he did last week. And I think that it can help Kayle get through what is often a rough laning phase. Notice as well that they picked an AP top champion. That's typically because Nemesis will go towards the AD build with things like the Blade of the Ruin King, Rage Blade, and maybe Trinity Force as well. So having the Cho'Gath there, adding that extra bit of AP damage, will round out this composition for Fnatic, which, once again, very team fight based. A little bit harder to execute than what we saw before, but still, press R button, press all your damage buttons, and you'll likely just clean through the enemy comp.
Yeah, and I also feel like it's a reaction to the fact that you saw that Splyce was setting up a front-to-back team. You already saw that the Tristana came through. They needed to go for the blind pick. They decided to go for the Rise and the Sion there. Maybe some flex opportunity, but you assume it's Sion into the top lane. So they've got their big, meaty front line. And so Fnatic are just saying, okay, we'll also grab a tank and we'll meet you in the front to back, but we also have a Kayle on top of that.
Yeah, and Frosk, is it fair to say that Splyce did go back to a slightly more trusted style of play? It was one of the big discussions we had from the draft in game one and then seeing how they played out.
Yes, this does scream kind of old school Splyce to me, the fact that maybe they lost confidence in some of the experimentation that they were doing in game one. And so for game two, it's kind of back to basics. Let's see if we can out team fight Fnatic. You start hitting that emergency button if this doesn't work out for them.
Well, there is an entire game for Splyce to prove they can challenge Fnatic and take them down. It was a very, very close game to open up the series, and Splyce need to bounce back. They find themselves down 0-1. And if you would like to watch the game from Broxer's POV, go check out twitch.tv/RiotGames2.
Now, there are some very small, quick things I want to draw viewers' attentions to very early on into this game. Helasyang is a player I want the viewers at home to keep an eye on. Something that you'll likely see him do is roam around the map and group up with Broxer a decent amount. This duo can be very devastating because of the amount of pick potential and synergy they have. A hook lands, guaranteed knockup. A knockup lands, guaranteed hook, which means that it's very easy to set up plays with either of these teams. The other thing I want viewers to keep an eye on is Xerxes once he hits that level 6 mark, where he will look to attack. The thing about Sivir is it's very difficult to spell shield that ultimate, and it's a very easy point of attack, but obviously it's Reckless's Sivir, and he is not a guy that is likely to go down to a single Skarner game.
It's also the death sentence in that lane. You know, if Hilly's ever paying attention that, hey, there's a possibility that Skarner's playing bot side, he's just going to back up, allow the Dark Passage to get Sivir to safety when, you know, Skarner comes wiggling out, predatored up, and running towards that Sivir. I feel like it would be easy for the mid lane to execute. The fact that you have the targetable CC and the Skarner Rise combo.
If anybody was watching during game one, we talked about how Youngbuck said they were going to talk about early game. There are some shenanigans here as Splyce have gone for a lane swap. Rocket jump forward. That's going to be a two-man knocker for Bwipo. He's still holding on to the flash. Stunned from the Braum passive. Flashes over the wall. I don't know if that was worth it.
So they've done a lane swap. We haven't seen this for quite a while, Frosk, and I'm a little surprised. Now, I'm trying to remember all of my turret knowledge, and I'm trying to remember if the bot tower is still weaker than the top one right now, because with the plate changes, I feel like that they actually equalize them out.
But I don't know if it was necessarily about kind of the long-term effects of a lane swap. We'll be able to tell later on as kind of like the waves get set, maybe they on the first reset of people going back to their lane if they swap back. If you see them swap back, then it tells me that it was actually about the level 1 of trying to make that Tristana-Braum combo work because of trying to proc the Winter's Bite.
Now, how painful is it that there was no kill secured, albeit they got the flash onto Bwipo? We can see a lot of pressure being put on this bottom lane. Reckless already able to pick up the first turret plate as Hilly takes tower shot to the face. While that was going on, Nemesis shoved into the middle lane and no flash on this Cho'Gath. Xerxes coming for again.
Are they really going to try this? Level 2 Skarner.
Did he take his W and his Q on Bwipo?
We're going to find out in just a moment. Bwipo's starting to back away. He's in a 3 versus 1. The tower's coming to help out. Rupture will tag up Norskeren. Norskeren survives with less than 100 hit points. That is Splyce committing to this lane swap and dive.
Wow, so they actually make that first blood happen, and Vizichachi is just sitting here holding in the 1 versus 2. Now, I did have it confirmed that both towers now have exactly the same stats. With the turret plate introduction, those got equalized, so in the past, one of the risks that you used to run with trying to go for this lane swap is you just lose your bot tower much faster than top, which means enemy team gets gold advantage and then they can swap to top side. But by doing this, you can just play for plates and you can just avoid those sometimes difficult 2v2s or 1 versus 1s.
And this could just be that then Splyce said, okay, if we're going to play a traditional old school lane swap, that we have the superior ability to dive between the Skarner, the Tristana, and the Braum versus something like the Rek'Sai, Sivir, and Thresh. And so far, it's worked out for them.
Yeah, take a look at this. Xerxes invaded and stolen that red buff from Broxah. Humanoid shoving in the mid lane, as well as the Splyce duo shoving the top lane. This Xerxes versus Broxah matchup is going to get interesting. Chachi's burning down from the Ignite. Reckless is waiting for the shield to pop. Going to decide to just focus the tower and the plates first.
And you know, the more that I think about it, in terms of diving, because it is a Scion and a Cho'Gath, it's actually very scary to dive the Scion because of how much damage he'll do when he gets resurrected and just starts slapping people. So the opportunity for Chachi to actually trade back, if an attempted dive did come from Fnatic in a lane swap, is astronomically much higher than an early game Cho'Gath.
So while I 100% agree, in terms of diving and setting up these kind of plays, being able to survive these situations is very important. But ultimately what you're playing for is plates.
Yes.
That is the priority. And if we look across the board, there are 2 plates or 3 plates have been taken in favor of Fnatic, whereas towards the top side, they managed to get none. They didn't take a single plate away from Bwipo. So while they were able to get a kill, the gold advantage ultimately goes towards the bot side of the map. As I say that, of course, he secured first blood as well. So that will mitigate that slightly.
Yes.
But, okay, maybe it's not as big of a deal as I thought it was. I should have checked the goal before I made that point.
I mean, that said, they immediately pulled the TP and they're like, okay, get out of it, reset the lanes, let's put it exactly back how it was because we're losing this one.
Okay, take a look. So even on gold as far as the teams are concerned. Obviously, first blood picked up by Splyce. While Bwipo was able to secure a little more CS, we saw how much pressure Reckless and Hylissang were putting on a Vizichachi. First buys, Kobby's got himself that BF sword versus the pickaxe and the long sword for Reckless, and now we've reset the game, gone back to that traditional style, but it was Xerxes and Splyce that made the call, got the kill, and they started the momentum rolling.
And one of the big factors of why we are eventually going to swap back is because it is an Infernal. You have to think maybe if this was an air, if this was an ocean, Splyce would have continued to try their luck maybe at the top lane. Maybe they swap back because they were losing the plate race. I don't know. I think this is super interesting. I hope we continue to see it in this best of 5. But so far, kind of a big, huh? Did it work?
I'm really looking forward to trying to Splyce after this game, getting the logic behind it. Ultimately, they did come out ahead. The fact that they are an item up on the bot lane, but there's no flash on Norskeren, as Xerxes is here.
All right, Broxah is coming in as well. He's going to tunnel over the wall. Kobby goes forward. He's already got a kill, got a reset. Jumped on Broxah's head. That's a double kill for Kobby. He's 3-0. And the reset to bottom lane helps Splyce get further ahead.
So, lane swap, worth 100%. That BF source coming up clutch in the 2 versus 2, arguably 2 versus 3 that Splyce found themselves in. The Tristana Braum is surprisingly strong this early on into the game, and Fnatic thought that with the power of Rek'Sai they would be able to come out on top, but they end up falling short.
I mean, we say surprisingly strong, but of all people, Reckless and Hilly should actually really know the strength of that lane. Tristana does so much damage when she lands on top of you, as well as the satchel, in tandem with Braum. Just kind of that like fadeaway damage when Winter's bite procs, when the satchel procs. It's just so huge.
1,500 gold up, Infernal Drake secured, and 3 kills in Cobby, the all-pro ADC. He's managed to steal away the signature pick of Reckless, and he's showing up here in the second game, got a small CS advantage, and while that tower has taken a lot of damage, Splice have got off to a very good start in game 2.
So the other thing that happened while we were talking a lot about the side lanes was that Nemesis had to deal 1v1 with the Rise. Now, if we think back to last week when Nemesis played up against Jizuke's Yasuo, one of the things that happened very early in that laning phase was a quick gank from Broxah to get some gold into Nemesis' back pocket, force a flash out from Yasuo, and he can't pressure as aggressively as he wants. Whereas because Broxah has been forced around the map trying to help all these lanes with the lane swap and the crazy shenanigans, Humanoid has just been pressuring and pressuring and pressuring, and Nemesis is forced under his tower. Those plates have slowly started to chip away, and Humanoid has built up a very healthy lead on this ride.
While he does have a healthy lead, it was also the fact that Nemesis did get that farm kind of funneled into him. And if Nemesis is saying, I'm going to go down anyway in this matchup, I'm just going to try to survive it, one of the key points when lane swaps were all the rage was the fact that it did actually isolate the mid lane, because your junglers are constantly skirting, playing around the side lanes, looking for those dives, protecting the lane that is forcing down the towers and the sides. It means that the mid lane gets to do whatever it wants. So if they don't end this game quickly, in the long run, that might actually help Fnatic, because Kayle wasn't punished in levels 1 through 6.
Yeah, and one of the things about this AD Kayle build is that it doesn't really ramp up until you get the level 11 mark, and you also have the Blade of the Ruin King and Rage Blade, and sometimes Trinity Force equivalent, depending on what your preference is as the Kayle player. So there's actually a fair amount of time for the side of Splice, and the fact that they built up this very strong lead on Cobby, we just need to now see Splice start to reinforce that, play more through that, try and secure that bot tower, and move this Tristana around the map.
Well, you can see Berserker's Greaves as well as those double attack speed dangers. Xerxes is going to step over the Scuttle Crab. He's spotted out by Fnatic. You can see the pings on the mini-map. And I think wisely, Reckless and Hilly, they backed away. Initially, Hilly was much deeper in that lane and instantly started to back off the moment Norscared and Cobby stepped forward. And take a look at that. That's at least another plate in reply at 9 minutes. Splice extending this lead further.
This is something small, but I do want viewers to kind of watch out for it. Normally in situations like that, Broxah continuously will put himself at a disadvantage to help his lanes. But that was actually Hilly and Reckless putting themselves at a disadvantage to allow Broxah to clear his camps on the top side. This is pretty normal, standard jungle pathing. But if you go back and watch the VODs on Fnatic, so many times Broxah will have a full jungle on one side of his map, forego that to try to dig his laners out of it. But this is now kind of twisting the tables on their head and giving Broxah more power back.
All right, so let's see what Broxah can do with it. 0-1-0 on that Rek'Sai. Hasn't been able to find a lane to gank because it hasn't been going long enough in the standard situation. We saw Bwipo and Vizicachi trading a lot of damage back and forth. And every time we look back in this mid lane, Nemesis is falling just a little further behind. He clawed back, what was a 15 CS deficit to about 8. Now it's extended back to 11. And every time Humanoid is just shoving forward and really using Ryze's kit to his advantage, Nemesis is on one of those champions that needs items, needs time. And at 10 minutes, the team's behind.
And there are 2 primary builds. I'm trying to find a window to do this as I see multiple pings. I'm like, please don't die Fnatic right now. There's 2 primary builds for Kayle right now that's happening in professional play. There's the LCK one, and then there's the one that Nemesis ran last time, which is the Blade of the Ruin King into the Rage Blade. And the thing about that is it spikes a lot earlier. It's a 2-item power spike. It has a much smoother build transition path, and you get to be more effective earlier on. But we'll hold it, because now they're diving.
All right, they are indeed. Realm from Humanoid. Reckless is going to get Chilling Smited down. The Impale not used just yet. Hilly's in trouble under the tower. Reckless killed by Humanoid, and he's going to get stunned up as Chachi tanks everything. 2 kills, a tower, and Splice are here to play.
And I absolutely love this play from Splice. We were just talking about how they need to play through the Tristana lane. They need to get this tower down and start moving the gold around the map. And how do they do that? They send all 5 members there. They spend a teleport, they spend ultimates, they get a double kill. Everything's set up beautifully to enable Cobby to carry.
Oh, maybe a little bit more, though. Bwipo could be in trouble. The thing that's saving him right now is they don't have information about where Broxah is, and that's why Cobby's not chasing deep into Fog of War there. But this is control over the mountain if they want it. They're trying to send their bot lane up top so they can quickly contest a possible Herald trade. This is Splice trying to eat up all of the map.
I love this play right now from Fnatic as an answer. 3 members lying in wait. They know that there's no vision in the river, but Cobb is showing respect. And now look at the rest of Splyce. They're making their way up towards the top side. They want this Herald, and they want Broxah dead.
All right, Norscaren's found Broxah. Here comes Cobby. The Lantern's in place. Hylissang's Thresh doing work. 3,000 gold up, but Splyce will be very, very happy to pick up the Rift Herald. There's still 2 minutes to make use of that charge to unlock even more turret plates, but it is once again at the cost of farm and gold to a Fnatic Sivir. He's going to get that plate and potentially the tower as the next minion waves makes it way down.
But let's not forget that a Reckless classic is that while he is very good in lane, and he's very good at surviving, farming, and getting resources into himself, when the team is at a deficit, that's often what he defaults to. He often isolates himself. He often focuses on getting as many resources so that he can be more valuable in the late game. And Splyce, with this knowledge, are just keeping the pressure up. They're trading towers across the board. They're not slowing down. They're looking for picks, and they're trying to keep this momentum going.
And it's making this late game Tristana so far ahead of the clock. The fact that she already has access to her Infinity Edge, that she's getting all of this gold off of the towers available to them, she can start grouping up with that Herald if she truly wants to. Like, Kabe is a massive problem. So any 5v5 that Fnatic look for, Splyce just win it.
Look at this map. Splyce are just running circles around Fnatic, putting pressure in the mid lane, forces Fnatic's hand. They back away. Yes, Mountain Drake was secured, but Splyce are not done. They're going to put pressure with the help of Herald, take down the top inner turret, as well as some damage in middle. Reckless forced to flash over the wall. Humanoid and Chachi, they're trying to shut him down. 3 towers to 1. 4,000 gold up, and Splyce are on a roll.
What's important to note is now Reckless hasn't had an opportunity to base. Broxah, his base was also interrupted. And Splyce, they're all full health. They're primed and ready to fight. Whippo is stuck top lane catching that wave. And the only thing right now buying Fnatic time is that there is a wave only just now crashing onto this tower, but that could have been devastating for Fnatic if Splyce were able to turn that collapse into a dive and another tier 1 tower.
And once again, I'm impressed with Xerxes' impact in the early game. He's one of the guys we've talked a lot about. He's one of the guys we were looking at to be a standout member of the Splyce organization. In his Rek'Sai in the previous game, helped get Chachi ahead, and his Skarner this time, 0-0-3, leading the way on both the tower dives and the tower pressure.
I'm just super impressed with the kind of set playbook of Splyce. When they know kind of exactly what the steps are, they don't have to interact with Fnatic at all. They just ate up the map, have a huge lead for themselves. It's now 2 items on the Tristana. So they're super confident that, okay, Fnatic are now the ones that have to avoid us. And if we ever group up and try to force something with our pressure, we will always win. So this is Splyce having the confidence, having the momentum, and I want to see what they do with the driver's seat now.
Yeah, really impressed with how Splyce are playing this, and you can already see a bit of a 1-3-1 starting to be set up, and things looking pretty good right now for Splyce.
Yeah, definitely the case. We can see some of the itemization as soon as we come out of this plate graphic. 12 secured by Splyce. That's an additional 500 gold just from those objectives. Cobby cannot be stopped here. Nemesis trying to clear the wave as best as he can, but he's had to invest in the Quicksilver Sash. So Blade of the Ruined King into QSS early already. And Splyce are in a great position. 3 towers to 1. Xerxes pushing the vision deeper. If you look at the minimap, lots of deep wards and setting themselves up well.
And if you're a Fnatic fan right now, you just need the team to try to slow down Splyce. They can't take fights, so they want to avoid them and clear out waves safely and try to secure defensive vision of their jungle to safely get to these lanes to farm.
So, while Splyce are currently sitting with an advantage, I wanted to kind of jump into the next few steps for Splyce. So we can just let things run right now. We can see as Splyce look to try and engage, which we have to turn back because there's a fight happening.
Every time we try to use the new tool, unfortunately action happens. Thank you, observers, for jumping out. Cobby gets yet another kill, and they're going to back away. Now the pressure is on Nemesis. He's going to be surrounded. Xerxes got an Impale available, a flash if he needs it as well. Nemesis will get caught up, locked up, will buy some time as the Impale drags him around, but CC and Kale, that's how you stop it.
The frustrating part here is Splyce do exactly what I was about to tell them to do, quick shot. They found a pick in mid, they isolate the side lane and find another pick there, and now they can just keep the pressure up. 7-0 in kills right now. A massive gold lead, Splyce looking very clean.
And what I love is what's the members that managed to snowball Splyce head. The fact that it was Humanoid and it was Norscaren's Braum finding the picks there. These less experienced members, you know, when we talked about Splyce's kind of iffy mid-game, a lot of time when you put the magnifying glass on mid and support, it was these two that kind of wandered around the map, that didn't exactly know where they needed to be, that weren't able to commit for their team. Now it's these two who are helping lead the charge, who are setting up a lot of these plays for the team.
and it was simply a matter of Hylissang overextending in that situation. You got to remember that Splyce have all 3 lanes pushed up right now, and that means that if you go past any kind of point where there's no vision, it's very easy for the rest of the team to collapse. Now, what you'll notice in this 1v1 is the great thing about Rise into it is with the phase rush, he can actually outrun the Kayle, and that means that he can just buy time, wait for his jungler to arrive. The Impale actually just is CC'd long enough for the duration of Kayle's ultimate, which means that Splyce find a very easy kill, and now they're looking for another one.
Nemesis running, forced to flash, did not use it in the previous exchange. Reminder, still sitting only on the QSS and Blade of the Ruined King. This is Fnatic's vision, as you can see on screen. They are way behind. Take a look at the gold values that Splyce have accrued. Their top 2 members significantly further ahead than Fnatic, and that is why they've got this 5,000 gold lead, and they're continuing to pressure multiple lanes at the same time.
Kobe close to over 9,000 gold right now, looking extremely strong. The primary carry of the team, 2.5 items, and once again, notice how Splyce are trying to split up the map. They're playing this 1-3-1 rather than just straight up team fighting Fnatic. They're not giving them that opportunity to come back into the game.
People will be saying that Koba is a super carry at 5-0. Got himself that Zeal. Another tower is just about to fall. Just not enough hits yet. And Splyce now with this gigantic lead are going to have a much simpler time playing the mid game because they have such an increased margin for error. They can pick any fights they want. And especially with Humanoid being so confident going to Nemesis's Kayle.
And Fnatic can't catch a break. This is a, what, double Infernal? No, double Infernal and Mountain Spawn. So the first 3 dragons are incredibly valuable. Splyce have complete control of the map. You can see that Skarner's picking it up for free right now. It is devastating. Even if Fnatic do manage to survive this stall out and put themselves at least on even footing chance, you're now fighting uphill at double Infernal. This is disaster.
I agree. Ross, I agree.
It hurts.
But it's one of those things as well where we said at the beginning of the game where we kind of wanted to challenge expectations of the fans because many perceive this to be a heavy favorite series for Fnatic. And the thing you always have to remember about Splyce is that they're not a bad team. They finished 4th during the regular season. They do have their strengths in their ability to team fight, and they do have strong carries as well. It was just a matter of, could they have the same early game as Fnatic? Could they match them in that? And the question mark ultimately fell down onto Xerxes. But in this game, while Xerxes was impactful, it was actually the unique strategy that Splyce brought to the table. With their lane swap, the early BF sword for Kobe, the quick turnaround gank that they got towards bot side, and the fact that they have not relented control so far.
And I think it's important to note that Splyce worked on some of the weaknesses they demonstrated during the regular season and demonstrated those improvements against SK Gaming, specifically talking around their mid game. And they've continued to improve as now Nemesis is going to get jumped on and it's going to get stunned up as well. The Impale can be used in just a moment or two. Nemesis is simply not strong enough to be in that position. Doesn't have the support. Splyce, 8 kills to 0.
And I feel like it's a bit of a name issue here, and that when you look at this Splyce roster, like, you know what the ceiling is of Fnatic. Maybe there's some questions around Nemesis, but you know what to expect from this squad when they're in form.
Ooh, Humanoid this time around gets caught up. I think that was a death sentence.
But the likes of Norscarin, Humanoid, even Chachi and Xerxes to a lesser extent, like, we don't know what this iteration of Splyce looks like. This could be stronger than their 2016 form. This is just spring, you know, who knows what they'll look like for summer. And I think that's where a lot of this kind of lopsided perception goes in, because I look at the community's comments and a lot of people are saying, yeah, but pound for pound talent, Fnatic are just better. Do we really know that about Humanoid and Nemesis in top tier form?
Well, he's 2v1, we're about to find out.
I'm going to say no in 2v1.
I can't win that fight, but I will say, I am very excited.
Complimenting him and he gets feasted.
I am very excited to see both Humanoid stepping up as well as Nemesis. Nemesis last weekend played better than I was anticipating for his first playoff series, and a Humanoid on this rise, yes, he had a favorable matchup early, but he's been pushing the boundaries on this champion. And obviously you can hear the fans here in Berlin cheering as Fnatic picked up their first kill. It will be at the expense of yet another one. Splyce fans erupt actually to shut down the Fnatic fans. 9 kills to 1, 6,000 gold up. And Splyce are using the Fnatic Death Bush against Fnatic. So, decimating smash, decimating smash! No! Broxer knew it was coming, but Nemesis did not. He manages to escape this time around. There wasn't a huge amount of follow-up damage while the rest of Splyce are on Baron.
Beautiful stuff from Splyce. Their vision setup in the enemy jungle was perfect. Bwipo has flash, he has no feast. He's going to get ultied away, which means that this will be an easy Baron for Splyce and maybe more kills.
All right, very good rupture. We'll buy some time for Bwipo. Impale is just about available. Couple seconds to go. Bwipo's turning it back around to the Feral Scream and another fantastic rupture. KLLT comes down by some seconds. Take a look at that. Delivers the chop to Kobe, but the damage needs to follow it back up. That's 1 for Fnatic. That's Now Humanoid's running for his life. Splice, slightly overconfident, just over Chase, and Fnatic find themselves a way back in.
It was going so well for Splice. Disaster walked into a choke point and excellently used KO ultimate in a disastrous target selection of grabbing the Cho'Gath.
Oof.
Oh no!
You hate to see it from Splice. The crucial mistake that gives Nemesis 2 kills and a small window for Fnatic back into this game.
Now, of course, this replay brought to you by Alienware will show the mistake, but reminder, Splice got the Baron and are still 5k gold up.
I feel like the pivotal moment here was the fact that they committed hard on the Cho'Gath and the KO ultimate absorbed a lot of the damage when Xerxes initially pulls him into the fight.
Also, keep your eyes on the positioning of Reckless right now. Untouched. He has no mana, but then he's going to get a lot of damage combined with the KO, combined with the fact that Nemesis is slowly stacking up his passive. And the moment it is primed and ready, along with a really good last-minute rupture, that's when this duo starts to melt through the team. And remember we said earlier on, you want to be really careful about grouping up against Fnatic because that is the one way they get back into the game. One good team fight with a Civic Kale can flip this game on its head, and that was a big shutdown that Fnatic have now brought into their back pocket, and Rageblade is now finished for Nemesis.
I was just going to say, and that was before the Rageblade was completed. Now that Kale has this unlocked, it is terrifying when she gets those big stacks and just starts swinging through Splice.
I'm still in the Splice hype, though. 6,000 gold up, 11 kills to 4, 5 towers to 2. Yes, Fnatic have the tools, but they are still very far behind, and they cannot afford any mistakes. Getting caught out as the next few minutes plays out for us.
It's just one of those unfair things where you see the nameplates and there's just that tiny voice in the back of your head that says, oh yeah, but it's Fnatic. And when you see Splice walk into a choke point and just get lit up, you're like, no, please, it was so perfect, you can do it. So
the funniest thing about this to me, slightly tangent, is that when Kobe jumped into mid and forced a flash out from Reckless, he did a very short but sweet laugh spam. Right? He's a 6-0 Tristana at this point, by the way, so to laugh in the face of Sivir at that point. But then the fact that Fnatic then immediately win a fight off the back of that, massive disrespect from the side of Splice that ends up getting punished.
I mean, when you land on Reckless with Tristana, it's a big play.
Well, take a look at the damage now. Kobe's going to push into that mid lane. He gets a couple autos, 3 items completed, QSS, as well as the Shiv and the Rapid Fire Cannon. Hilly and Fnatic are defending at their inhibitor turrets. Down a lot of gold, and they need to find more team fights or buy more time. Fortunately, they have the Sivir wave clear for days to help them get to the stage where Kale and Sivir can take over, but they need to protect their base. The tower has now fallen as Bwipo makes his way back to the mid lane. He gets caught by a decimating smash. The rupture as well. Box comes down. Now Vizichachi's already sent into zombie form. Sion gets once again pulled backwards and will get farmed up yet again. The inhibitor is defended, but the tower did drop.
Once again, a little too much disrespect shown towards Fnatic. Good hook there from Hylissang combined with the chains you see from the rest of Fnatic meant that they were able to lock down the front line, and that means Splice cannot continue the siege. Honestly, Splice, considering how big of a lead they had, you can't help but start to get a little bit nervous for them now, even though they're so strong. 3 items on Rise, 3.5, well, 4 arguably with the QSS completed for Kobe. Like, they should be so strong. They should be so terrifying. But Fnatic, with this Kale, now level 15, not sure if she got the elixir of skill, but regardless, very, very close to that point where she's going to do true damage and will be permanently exalted at all points, along with Reckless. 2, nearly 3 items done. Fnatic have that win condition in their back pocket where one good team fight can flip this game on its head.
And unfortunately, it was one bad team fight from Splice that really put them in this position, because I agree with you, it was like full steam ahead. They were going to roll over Fnatic, start eating up all of the space, and now it almost feels like they've gotten into their heads a little bit, that they're almost giving too much respect at the wrong times, maybe a little bit too confident at the wrong times, and not picking their moments correctly. And that's the thing, this is still a very young squad. Even in their experienced members like Xerxes, they've got 3 members who are 19 years old. They want to get to that stadium, they want to get to Rotterdam, and this is a high pressure situation.
We actually heard Norscaron saying that in the pre-match video, talking about he's never played on a stage that size and what it would mean for Norscaron to make it to Rotterdam.
And Duke talks about it all the time, their coach. You know, he says, yeah, the Splice name has a long-standing history. We have Chachi and Kabe, but this is a very young roster.
Yeah, it really, really is. Now, of course, this series is just heating up. I just want to remind everybody that tomorrow, G2 will be taking on Origin. Ready Check starts at 4:30 Central European Summer Time, with Game 1 starting at 5 p.m. Bring us back in. 26 minutes on the clock. It is a 6,500 gold lead to Splice. They are playing a little bit more tempered, but they are still pushing Fnatic back to their inhibitor towers and deep inside their own territory.
I find it so funny that you say that we're only 26 minutes in. It feels like we're already in the late game. Quick shot with all these huge item spikes being reached for so many players. I did get word in my ear, thank you production, that Nemesis did not get the Elixir of Skill. So one more level is really the break point that so many players at home fear. And team fighting against this level 16 KO with this item build, it's scary.
Okay,
Ding.
so you've got level 16. She now automatically gets her passive when she rocks up. Sivir also has 3 items complete. This is a very terrifying. For all of the lead that Splice made themselves.
It's the Baron. Here we go.
In a true 5v5, this could go either way.
All right, Baron is being burned down, and this is the vision perspective from Fnatic. Thank you, observers. Fnatic are walking in blind. Now they've got to be very, very careful. Baron continues to be burned down. Look at the minimap. Humanoid and Nemesis, they're going toe-to-toe. They're down in the bottom left. Baron is now being stopped. Splice have peeled away. They've been interrupted. Humanoid runs away. Divine Judgment has been used. And the judgment is nobody will die just yet. Baron has started to reset. Humanoid and Nemesis, they're backing away.
And they're just trying to force up the TPs and now looking for a possible engage.
All right, there's a defensive flash from Bwipo. Death Sentence goes wide. Smash finds nobody. Vedius as Hilly is forced to put the box down defensively. Death Sentence comes back.
Here's TP.
Teleport starting to channel. Nemesis will be joining just a little bit late. Glacialfish is going down.
He got Reckless!
Corbin jumped over the wall. He's found Reckless. He's still untouched. But take a look at Nemesis. He's trying to burn. He's got no ulti to use though. He's got one.
He's dead.
Two. But here comes Kobe. Hopping, skipping, jumping. This will be the 3rd kill of the fight. And he's looking to chase for more.
And Kobe comes up huge. Triple kill for the AD carry of Splice. He needed to be the carry for his team. And he does so by flashing in and assassinating Reckless.
And that means that they can just devastate the base of Fnatic here. I'm curious how confident they're going to be if Broxah and Hilly can make sure that they don't push for the win, but they're at least going to get total Baron control here.
But so much props has to go for Humanoid for that fight to work out. Not only did he get the flash from Nemesis, but he got his ultimate as well. And we saw Nemesis in the middle of that fight. He was primed and ready to clean up, but because he didn't have those crucial skills available, they could lock him down, Kobe could clean him up, and Splice could come out on top.
And Kobe, I believe he gets over on the side of the wall and immediately assassinates Reckless here. It's huge damage to that backline.
You can see here, keep your eyes on Reckless in this fight. Cersei flashes in. He doesn't actually get hit by the Impale, but he does get CC'd. And Kobe is like, okay, hit. The stun from Braum as well. That's more than enough to kill Reckless. And unfortunately, Broxah then gets knocked away, so he can't threaten Kobe anymore. And he's just sitting on the backline, cleaning everything up.
10, 1, and 0. Mr. Splice, the franchise player, your all-pro bot laner. The strategy from Splice from the get-go was get this man ahead. It was a lane swap to enable Tristana 30 minutes ago. A tower dive at level 2 for Skarner. That managed to work, and now Kobe on this Trist has completely taken over the game. Super's in 2 lanes. Baron is still standing, and Fnatic are trying to push the wave out as fast as is possible.
And it just means that there are multiple ways now that Splice can eat up this game and start to split up the map. They can try to play with their super creep waves. They can play their 1-3-1. You can see Humanoid still on the bottom of your screen, or they can try to go toe-to-toe for the 5v5. Fnatic do not have the same luxury. They are forced to look for the 5v5. They need to play around their KO.
And now you can see Bwipo, the one being in the bot lane. He has his TP up, so that risk of a steal is unavailable. Splice, they need deeper vision if they really want to commit to this Baron, because right now, Fnatic still have easy access to the potential steal.
Okay, teleport's available for Bwipo. He's backed away from that bottom turret. You can see Humanoid pushing in. Nemesis forced to defend the supers in the top lane. Kobe and Xerxes are trying to focus down Baron, but look, Broxah's waiting in the wings. Humanoid is now pushing onto Bwipo. Keep your eyes on the bottom left. Keep your eyes everywhere. There's action in every single lane.
They don't need to force the 50-50. I love this call from Splice because meanwhile on the bot side, Humanoid is beating down Cho'Gath.
Oh, this is so difficult. Nemesis has left the top lane. Death Sentence finds no target. Blue team, Splice! They secure Baron Nashor. They played that so calm and calculated, and they now extend that gold lead even further, 8,000 up.
Patient play from Splice. I was a little concerned because of how much easy access Fnatic had towards the Baron, but Splyce recognized, okay, if we try to invade the enemy jungle, there's a risk we end up finding ourselves in another fight. So instead, we'll just use the super minions, we'll use Humanoid on a side lane to force Fnatic to split up, and then they can't possibly come and challenge us at this objective, resulting in a very clean and easy secure for Splyce.
Very nicely done by Splyce and Frostgame, and I just call out something you mentioned earlier. When you look at Splyce and the fact they're playing against Fnatic, playing against a Kayle and a Sivir, those late game champions, the question I have is, will Fnatic win this game? The reason I ask that and I set it up is I'm going to ask the fans at home, will Fnatic come back? Will they be able to defend against double supers and Baron and Mountain? Vote in chat and we'll take a look at your votes later.
I mean, I think the important thing is that Fnatic recognize that they have no power over this map. Splyce's composition and how strong each of their individual pieces are mean that they can play multiple side lanes at the same time. But the fact of the matter is, eventually, Splyce will have to go through Fnatic in the base. So as long as Fnatic fight them in the base, they still need to be respected. But if they fight the jungle, if they get split up, Splyce will just rip them apart.
I love the fact right now, Splyce playing on all 3 lanes. The super minions are walking in. You can see a lot of still faith in the Fnatic squad. Everyone knows what it's like to play against the Kayle. Everyone has been in this situation where they thought the game was won, and then Kayle just ends up turning it around. And now the pressure falls on Nemesis as Bwipo caught out.
Oh, so much damage. He's forced to run away with his life. The Fisher comes down, knocks Bwipo up, continues to be hammered on. Humanoid hasn't joined the fight, but the inhibitor turret has fallen. Reckless is running, got flash available. Not going to use it just yet. Third inhibitor falls.
And it feels like Splyce have all of the tools to deal with this. This Braum is doing so much work against the damage that Reckless wants to put out on Sivir, and they have things like Humanoid as well as the Impale from Skarmer to deal with the Kayle, to CC lock her down. I love what Splyce have drafted here and how they've executed the entire game.
Here we go.
One last push.
Bwipo is stepping forward. Feral Scream has already been used. Bwipo's going to dash away. The Lantern actually pulls him to safety. I'm looking at Xerxes for the Impale. Take a look at the Flay. That's a jump onto Humanoid. Now the damage onto Chachi. Buster Shot's going to buy so much time. Reckless is very, very low. Nemesis is stepping forward, but it's Broxer down. Hilly down. Kobe Rocket jumps forward. Reckless stays just alive long enough to continue fighting. Final Judgment is available for Nemesis. He has used it onto Reckless, but Kobe doesn't care. He's got 2. The ricochets flying across. It is simply not enough for Reckless. Nexus is now being focused. Nemesis is stepping forward. That's a triple kill. Picked up for Kobe. The Quadra, the Nexus, and Splyce even the series.
The GGs come out from Splyce in what was overall a very good game. There was a brief moment where things looked a little suspicious, but ultimately Splyce were in control of this game from start to finish. The creative lane swap, the early kills, they were 7-0 at one point with full control over the map. And Splyce are bringing the game to Fnatic.
I know it is a little bit of a joke, but Fnatic 2 wins, 6 losses on red side across the 8 games that they have played. The pivots in draft and then the execution on that draft allows Splyce to pick up the win.
And again, it's kind of back to those mental games. You know, they went back to a 5v5, and even though Fnatic did get that one good team fight, Splyce showed how they can eat up the map, how they can also draft for the team fight, and how they can best Fnatic in these series. So I'm curious, do we see the teams run back the exact same thing, draft for scaling, draft for 2-item power spikes, and eventually have a 5v5 composition ahead of them, or are we going to continue to play around with these side lanes?
Yeah, ultimately, I think we're going to have to see something new from Fnatic, which is quite exciting because I feel like we've seen a lot of the same stuff. We've seen a lot of Karthus jungle. This was a very similar draft to what Fnatic ran against Vitality last week that got very heavily punished in the early game. Clearly, you cannot disrespect Splyce like this because they've come in prepared, but what's impressive to me is that Splyce is the first team to interrupt the winning streak from Fnatic in the second half of the split. They lost to SK, they went on a 12-game winning streak, and now Splyce has been the team to ruin it.
Yeah, thank you very much, Venice. 100% right. 12-0 to now 12-1, and to break down exactly how Splyce took down Fnatic. Here's Shocks and crew. Welcome back to the LEC, and Humanoid and Splice are fighting tooth and nail for a spot in the semi-final next weekend in Rotterdam. And you can watch the game through the eyes of Splice's mid laner over at twitch.tv/RiotGames2. We're jumping into game 3 as the series is tied up at 1-1. Fnatic at side selection as they lost the previous game. That means they have selected blue side. We'll start with Vedius. How does this impact the draft, and does this benefit Fnatic?
Well, I think the fact that they have priority pick is always valuable because it means that Splice will be forced to shift their bans. They didn't ban Rakan in game 1, they did in game 2, which makes me wonder how they'll adapt once again. They left the Braum open, they were able to prioritize it. Do they really want to make sure Hylissang doesn't get Braum in game 3? Do they want to make sure that Vayne is still taken off the cards? I feel like there are still a lot of question marks, and it feels like we haven't quite developed that best of 5 meta that you often see between two top teams.
I don't know. I feel like it's starting to lean a little bit about the bot lane, even though game 1 was about Chachi, just because of the different champions. You know, you just brought up the Braum priority pick, the Rakan, the Vayne, the Alistar, things like that. I really like the Braum priority because if we think that it's about the ADCs, it denies so much damage from Reckless, especially when he's on a champion like Sivir, and it pairs so well with Tristana as like a double denial against Reckless, because then Kabe's on the hyperscaling ADC, Reckless doesn't get that comfort pick. So I almost think there's like some serious mind games happening in every single lane, but especially between these support pools and how it affects the AD carries.
Ooh. All right, so now we're actually seeing a shift up from Fnatic's side where in game 1 they banned the Lissandra, game 3, but now they ban the Braum, suggesting that they want to put priority on getting the Lissandra. So the question is, does Splice then look to ban it away, or do they stick with, oh, they're actually going to shift things up and go for a Karthus ban? So I believe this was actually available and up in game 2. But they ended up just letting it, or my apologies, no, Fnatic actually were the ones to ban away. So it definitely feels like a red side ban that we're starting to see throughout the series.
Well, let's see. The options were available for champions. Hover there are the Kai'Sa, and it is going to be the Lissandra locked in, as, of course, we saw that Braum banned away.
And then, just as you called it, Vedius, that does say to me that Humanoid will probably go towards the Zoe, unless he wants to take kind of a, not a losing matchup into Lissandra, but we know that Zoe has a great matchup into Liss. She's able to contest with the wave clear. She can help follow with some of her long range, and then can push her around and bully her in the lane.
So I'm just going to throw it out there. I feel like a Draven is coming from the side of Splice. The fact that they put so much emphasis on a Thresh and a Rek'Sai so early on in the draft, to me, this says that Splice is looking to dominate that bot side of the map. And I just kind of want to throw it out there that I think a strong AD carry is going to come through from the side of Splice.
Okay, I see which one it will be. If it's not the Draven, there are several other options available to them. The Jarvan is once again locked in, this time on the side of Fnatic. Could obviously go in the top lane by Bwipo. He had a tough game in the first of this series.
Two tough games, to be honest, mate.
If you have just joined us, Bwipo in the previous game on that Cho'Gath was the sufferer of a lot of pressure from the lane swap and then early ganks. Let's see what's going to happen this time around, as the next lock-in is going to be the Vayne. This is, of course, blind into that AD. And if Kobe wants to run the Draven, then Frosco, it is something you talked about in the previous picks and bans.
It's just one of the fun interactions. That said, Draven is still the king of the bot lane. His ability to rock up and just basically half health someone, or at least starting hitting them for 25%. But you have to think they would need to take a hard champion like that now. But right turn, Vedius.
All right, Jinx into Vayne. Now, one of the things about Jinx is she can definitely outrange the Vayne in rocket form, but in terms of one-on-one dueling, in terms of the laning phase, I feel like this is actually not the worst lane for a Vayne. I think what I do like is the synergy between Thresh and Jinx, but to me, this suggests that Splice, once again, like, they just prefer the scaling carries. And you know, I talked about how we could see a strong AD carry, like the Draven or maybe the Lucian, but the fact that they go for more of these scaling champions, the crit itemization suggests that Splice is expecting this to be another 30+ minute game. 3 items will come through, and he's saying, well, you know what, I reckon I can hyper carry better than you can hyper carry.
I'm curious if this might be another return to 2015. I would be shocked if we saw another lane swap attempt, but one of the things that Jinx and Trist have in common is their ability to kind of sit and to take plates relatively quickly, either through Satchel or through ramp up attack speed. So it's not the best for Jinx in early levels because she does need more points into her Q, but maybe it's the same thing. We just avoid the lane from Vayne altogether.
Well, another bunch of supports find themselves in the ban pool from Splice. They take away the Alistar and the Pyke, so Hylissang will need to dig a little deeper. No Morg, no Braum to play with either. And of course, it is a Hecarim and a Jace that is now banned away. I believe it was Jason the first game as well that Vizicachi played and had a very, very good performance with the help of Xerxes' early ganking. And now Splice need to look for their solo laners. They've got several options, directions they can go. If this Azir is locked in, it is. There's a commitment to, we think this game's going late.
Yeah, that's definitely what it suggests, but also it's a really big comfort pick for Humanoid. Those that don't know, Humanoid has been a big Azir player for a very long time. He made a bit of a name for himself on the champion, and the fact that they're blind picking it says that he has a lot of confidence, especially into the Lissandra matchup.
And then it's a response of the fact that Bwipo has his blind Aatrox. This is the champion that he said on Euphoria that when he doesn't know what his competition is going to be, that this is the one that he feels most comfortable, that he can have those outplay matchups, and now he sees it.
Ooh, comfort v comfort. The Shen coming in from Vizicachi. This is, I don't want to say his most played, Trevor. Maybe you can confirm for me, but it's definitely one of his favorite champions, and it should be up there.
It is. This split only played twice. This will be the third time. I will double check all-time records in just a moment or two. But again, when you've got an Azir and a Jinx and you have Thresh and Shen, a lot of tools to protect those hard late game carries.
To me, it says that they're looking to play around this bot lane, quick shot. Now, we shouldn't be surprised if we also see some attention bot lane from the side of Fnatic. Something they love to do with Vayne lanes is that level 2 gank Frosk. We've seen it a few times now, and it's just to get Reckless ahead very early, so that once he gets just that bit of gold, that extra level advantage, he can just start to snowball and dominate that lane.
And it's not just the level 2, it's the fact that you also have the likes of the Lissandra, the Jarvan. You know, if Reckless and Hilly ever get a big wave to crash onto that tower, the amount of dive tools are really terrifying. So I actually really like kind of the pivot to Chachi, grabbing something like a Shen to absorb a lot of that pressure.
I'm a huge fan of the tools that's going to give you. And of course, in the hands of Vizicachi, the man on your screen, definitely an incredibly experienced top laner who has had a stellar series so far with the help of Splice. Now, of course, we will be jumping the game in just a moment. And before we do, Laura is busy setting up backstage for an interview. Post-draft, if we can get a quick reaction on how this has played out. Laura standing by with Splice.
I threw.
I absolutely love that. Bwipo has a bad game in game 1, so let's elect a strategy to make him even more uncomfortable, get into his head, get under his skin. I love that approach. I love that Duke is willing to say that on camera as well. And now we need to see if this composition can do something similar to Bwipo. Although I imagine the focus is going to be elsewhere.
So before we dive into like the composition, some of the matchups, I really wanted to explore something that we discussed earlier on in the day, which was that for a lot of Fnatic's recent play, it's been very cookie cutter, bread and butter. It's almost like it's standard League of Legends. And the thing about Fnatic is, it's not a criticism because they're just very good at it. They simplified the game down. They picked champions that they're good at, and they played them very well. They had easy to execute upon win conditions, and they found success with it. The thing is, Splice have now come in prepared, and they have answers. They've shaken things up a little bit. So now they're bringing the challenge to Fnatic, and they're saying, let's see what else you've got, because we've got a bag of tricks that we're ready to bring to you, and if you don't challenge us, we're going to take this series.
And I also like the idea that it's not just always about the late game. You look at a composition from Splice that has something like an Azir and a Jinx, and you say, yeah, you got that hyper-scaling potential, but all series long, and in fact, all split long, Splice do play in the early game, whether it's how they're shutting down enemy junglers or how they're interacting with people. Just because their wins come late doesn't mean that they're not doing anything early.
Yes, the engage, though. That's a good play. Flash away from Norskeren. This is going to be early adaptation from Fnatic. Broxah getting the flash from Norskeren.
And we talked about it in draft, level 2 gank. They do it every single time when they're playing with a Vayne. They love to try and just alleviate any kind of pressure towards the bot side of the map so that Reckless can feel as comfortable as possible. With no flash on the Thresh, that definitely makes trying to set up plays with the side of Splice that much harder.
Yeah, and it's the idea that Vayne usually has a hard time in these matchups. So like you're saying, without having access to these key summoner spells, it basically just gives a bypassed free lane phase. Now, That said, if this does go to the big 5v5s, I still have to question how easy this is going to be for Reckless to execute on when he's against such long-range champions like an Azir and a Jinx on a mid-tier range ADC.
Thank you very much, Stats, bringing up the all-time LEC Vizicachi stats. You can see he's played quite a lot of Shen, just over 50% win rate with it, but it's something that he has a lot of comfort on, and it's definitely something he's made a bit of a name for himself on over the years.
And of course, he is under a little bit of pressure as Bwipo is jumping onto him in those early stages. Same can be said for Kobi and Norscaron being pushed backwards in that lane. Umbral Chains and the Infernal actually going to pull him backwards. Vizicachi unable to complete the dash because of the knock-up, and that pulled him back. Bwipo timing that well. And I love the cheers from the crowd here in Berlin, definitely getting behind this game.
So, I'm really sorry, I got really animated there, quick shot. The reason why is because we actually have a lethal tempo Azir on Humanoid. And this makes me really excited because we've been seeing a lot of Comets and Electrocutes and like Mage kind of builds, but the really great thing about lethal tempo is that once you've got 3 Azir soldiers out, he actually gets a lot of bonus attack speed. And when you stack that with lethal tempo, the late game damage on Azir is just insane. It is so impactful in these fights. And you have to keep your eyes on this Azir as the game progresses because his damage is going to get monstrous.
Remember, Duke said in the interview, get under Bwipo's skin. He was running it down game 1. They did lane swap game 2. Xerxes was thinking about an opportunity, didn't follow it up. And as the recall completes, Bwipo continues to hammer down Chachi. Chachi was planning to recall anyway, even on CS, and the wave's going to push towards him shortly.
I mean, I know it's only 4 minutes in, but Bwipo is not running it down this time around. He is smacking this Shin around. You can see how Chachi wants to play it by trying to play around the chains with his taunt, but it's not working out.
Remember, there's no flasher nor Scarin. He's already been ignited. The Lantern comes back up, and there's no follow-up. There's a gigantic wave of minions that Hilly and Reckless want to peel back and fight for. So Kobi's Summoner Heal was used in that exchange.
I really like Xerxes' pathing here, not only to show up in time when Broxa does, but the fact that because Norscaron doesn't have his flash, they probably called their jungler since their wave is pushing in, and they're saying, we don't want to be extended without any sort of safety. Please come help us.
Oh, Hilly-san gets caught out, chunked down, first blood to Kobi.
Beautiful stuff from the side of Splyce. They find another early advantage against Fnatic, and we talked about this as well in draft. Both junglers likely to look around the bot side of the map. Now, the reason why Xerxes path top was because he was like, Chachi's going to have the push. We want to make sure that he's okay. We want to make sure he's safe. But then the moment they saw all these repeated jungle gank spot, they're like, okay, it's the Fnatic Classic. Let's make sure we're here. And Xerxes was ready for the counter.
Yeah, and again, just a great read. Xerxes, we talk about how he's such a strong early game jungler, but a lot of it is his cerebral pathing, even when he's not doing something, his ability to exert pressures. And that's what this started out with, and then he just saw his opportunity to punish.
Really good stuff. The flash knockup. We talked about this last game when Broxa and Hillisang were playing it. Same applies this time round. The Rek'Sai into Thresh, one of those CCs, if one lands, the other lands, and it makes it very difficult to escape from that situation.
And for a third game in a row, Xerxes is having an impact in the early game. Yes, I don't want to discount the fact Broxa also successfully had a gank, popped a summoner spell. These stats were coming into today. So this was up until last weekend. Does not include the first 2 games. First blood participation, higher value for Xerxes. He has been our first blood prince of the spring split. Kills plus assists just behind Broxa, of course. But this game has been hugely influential as Xerxes has just found ways to get his laners ahead.
Did you just demote him to Prince? That says first, Trevor. That's king.
The title of king already belongs to somebody.
I'm sorry, if Vikos doesn't have first next to his name, Xerxes gets it.
I accept that, and then Xerxes has been promoted. Compliments of Frostgurren. Now Broxa and Xerxes in the same area, but Xerxes' recall will complete.
Can we once again can we just acknowledge the fact that once again Xerxes was topside around the time that Broxa was there? Just kind of ties back into the point that Frost was making, which is like he's just very good at having the identification of where the enemy jungler is. And just look at the minimap. You can see the entire bot side is available, and Xerxes is like, well, there's a risk that he could be towards topside, so I'll clear topside out. I'll hang around. Maybe if he comes, then I'll be ready for the count again.
And now there's so much more freedom for him to play bottom because Chachi now has access to the Stand United. So we talked about how there's these tools that they can try to absorb any sort of pressure that Fnatic will likely put into this bot lane. They've all been unlocked now.
And of course with Xerxes, great reads of Broxa. Last weekend, great reads, a great team play around Selfmade and SK Gaming, which is partially why Splyce were able to get ahead and take that series. It's just a very, very good sign, and the pressure is on Fnatic. I have felt over the course of the 2 games, Splyce have been the more impressive team. The advantages that Fnatic got in game 1 were largely because of the mistake Splyce made setting up around Dragon. And right now, Splyce, the first big moves of this game, it is still only a small gold lead, but it is one that they've capitalized like they did in the previous game.
It's funny that you mentioned that, Quick Shot, because one of the quote-unquote criticisms, or benefits rather, I had of Fnatic was that they didn't really show anything against Vitality. Vitality kind of lost that game rather than Fnatic won it. While they had a really good game 3, I was like, coming into this series, Fnatic haven't actually showed anything. They actually have all their cards held to their chest, which is a really big advantage for them. But we're kind of seeing the same thing where a lot of their leads have come through the mistakes of their opposition. And you know, you have to start to wonder what happens if Splyce don't make mistakes. Can Fnatic be the proactive ones? Can they be the ones to find these early leads, and can they be the ones to turn these into big advantages? Because so far in the series, as you rightly said, I do think Splyce have been the ones that are really dictating the pace.
Yeah, and of course it helps with Xerxes. I have just a little quick stat for you. Kobbe obviously picked up First Blood. That was his 8th First Blood of the split. He currently leads the league there in kill, First Bloods. The next AD carry is Patrick at 4. Now take a look at this. Xerxes once again with the help of Stand United, an easy kill onto Broxah, reading him like a book. It's not done yet. Now Reckless and Hilly, they're trying to pick up a fight. Chachi's come over the wall, but take a look at Reckless. He's sticking inside, tumbles away to safety. Defensive flash from Kobbe. The Darkened Blade is starting to chase down. Whippo's looking for an opportunity. Can't find a Splyce target. Chachi will lose his life, but not enough to kill Reckless. The zaps come out, the knock up from Whippo. There's the stand aside. Now all of a sudden the damage is coming out. Kobbe's now running for his life. Norscarin still sticking around. The flash comes in. There comes the dash and the Gleaming Quill. Hylissang kills Norscarin. They punish Splyce, and Fnatic turn it round.
And what started off as a simple kill onto Broxah ends up being 4 kills in favor of Fnatic, and they flip this early game in their favor.
Thaddeus, weren't you just talking about how Fnatic are able to turn mistakes made against them into their own advantages? That was Splyce's play. They were the ones that pulled the trigger on the Stand United. They didn't use it defensively. They used it aggressively and just overreached.
So we're going to check out this Alienware replay, and you can see Broxah, he ends up dying. Very good gank. He walks through vision that he doesn't have. And then the bot lane decides to start a fight. Now, a really crisp reaction from Hylissang, along with an immediate teleport from Aatrox, ends up being a 3-for-3, or 3 versus 3 rather, but Norscarin's forced out of the fight. So it very quickly becomes a 1 versus 3. Now, Splyce, rather than just disengage and lose their top laner, think, you know what, we can turn this around. We can fight this. Norscarin is sticking around. Kobbe overextends. And now Humanoid gets stuck because he's ulted, and he can't click the lantern because of a great ward from Fnatic. They then find themselves in this situation where Whippo can chase them down, and it's just kill after kill after kill.
It's a completely different fight if Kobbe doesn't expend his ultimate there trying to find the snipe earlier up in the river. If he had it when Fnatic initially got, or when Splyce initially got split up, that is a completely different outcome from Splyce. So very small, cooldown differences, target selection, that was the big key difference maker there.
And of course the 4 kills for Fnatic, 1 to everybody except Broxah, distributed evenly, a number of summoner spells blown across the board. So Humanoid and Kobbe got to be a little bit cautious. While we're in the replay, Splyce were able to pick up the first Cloud Drake of the game. And Fnatic are now in charge, around 1,500 gold up. And Whippo on this Aatrox is already looking much more comfortable than the 2 previous games.
Well, it's nice that the jungler hasn't come multiple times, or the bot lane, or, all of Splyce trying to kill him. Definitely makes him a slightly happier top laner, and currently sitting at 1-0-3, been involved in every single kill. Whippo definitely one of his big comfort champions, working towards some pretty big items early on.
Yeah, we'll see which direction he decides to go. And for Fnatic, that's a very good sign, turning the fight around when the pressure is on. Had that gone Splyce's way, you'd have to start pegging them for favorites to go ahead. The mental of Fnatic was boom, so to speak. And take a look at this. Death sentence, Flay, box. Hylissang is eaten alive by Kobbe and Norscarin. And Cersei may even fancy a shot if Reckless sticks around without that flash.
Just too easy. And the fact that Thresh as a champion allows so much kill potential with so many different partners down there in that bot lane. You can see there the death sentence into the box, into the traps. There was just nothing Hilly could do. He couldn't get to react.
No, if Reckless sticks around, I'm trying to see where Xerxes is. He's moving back into the red buff area, clearing out some of the wards, a number of plates secured by Splyce, and still a minute and a half roughly before those plates go down. And Broxah will be able to drop that Rift Herald, which Fnatic secured a few moments ago. I want to keep my eyes on how many plates he can help secure, because Fnatic are now only 1,000 gold up, thanks to what was a very good setup by Norscaron.
Yeah, good stuff from him. Now Broxah returns to the river where he previously lost his life to help clear out some vision, and you will notice that a lot of the vision from Splice is invested towards the bot side. Thanks to that kill that they got from earlier on, Xerxes could get a couple of deep wards down, along with Norscaron. But you already talked about the Rift Herald play. They will use this to try and help secure a couple of tower plates in the mid lane. And notice how, if you look at the minimap, you can see Fnatic actually have 3 lanes pushed in right now because Splice have just looked to reset. Kobe actually comes mid, which gives a lot more time for Reckless to freely hit onto this tower, uncontested. And now he's actually level 9 due to the death that his support recently had, allowing him to soak up all this experience.
Yeah, really nicely done. Reckless on the Vayne, getting closer to Blade of the Ruined King. Kobe 2-1-0. He's already got himself the Infinity Edge. He's definitely going to be dropping the average Infinity Edge timing with this series alone because of how well he's played in the early game. But what I like from the observers, they highlighted all 3 lanes and how all 3 lanes of Fnatic shoved up to tower, pushing deeper and deeper. Obviously, Herald in the mid helped, and Bwipo on this Aatrox. Definitely a decent matchup into that Shen.
Now that the Lissandra TP has been used mid lane, there might be a window where Splice decide, okay, Nemesis can't impact the map right now. Bwipo also doesn't have his TP. There's a small window where we actually have a numbers advantage if we pick a fight away from these opponents. So I actually want to see Xerxes play very proactively right now in tandem with Chachi to try to break the fact that Fnatic are just passively winning a lot of these lanes right now. They're forced up. If you don't impact them, they'll just continue to whittle away.
Yeah, I agree with that. And once again, it's Broxah looking for an opportunity right now for the side of Fnatic. There's a lot of good vision just around the entrances towards the bot side of the map for Splice, which is making it difficult for Broxah to look for an opportunity right now. But you talked about the Shen ultimate, and I think one of the things that they've missed is that window where the teleport was unavailable for Bwipo, and now it is just about to come up. And he's just freely hitting on this top side, getting to a point where he's stronger than Chachi, so he can just bully him out of lane. And if Chachi ever teleports out, they're going to lose that top tower.
Yeah, and it's the fact that because they know that the tower can possibly be traded or Aatrox could follow him down, when they pick their moment, it must work because Chachi would lose so much if it wasn't absolutely a kill into a dragon, into a tower, something like that.
Yeah, that dragon, by the way, 30 seconds to Infernal. Vision has been contested in this bottom quadrant of the map a lot over the last few minutes. Fnatic are up nearly 2,000 gold and setting up for a potential dive because this tower's going low. Broxah's gone in, and this is going to be enough to force Splice away. Teleport will be completed from Bwipo. This alleviates that pressure on Chachi, but it does secure the first tower.
I just feel like with this stalemate, though, of Splice just kind of watching Fnatic, Splice trying to figure out their moment, they were a bit too patient, a bit too cautious, because now they lose their tower, you know, Vayne just gets all of that free farm, all of that free time, and now they have perfect positioning on an Infernal of all things.
Yeah, and that's why I think it was fine to invest the teleport, because you're guaranteeing this Drake off the back of it as well. And Fnatic, they can now look to set up a siege on the mid lane tower. Tried to steal it away with the Jinx rocket, but it wasn't even close. And look, 1 hit away. This should be a clean tower for Fnatic.
Oh, Bwipo's going to fancy it, but at what cost? The Emperor's Divide, and Bwipo's going to get... Oh! Where did that damage come from? I demand a replay, because I did not see the reinforcements dive bombing Splice.
That felt like the Shy just landed on Splice right there. Massive DPS.
Unbelievable, and my apologies to all headphone users around the world because I just lost my mind at that damage. I legitimately cannot wait to see the replay because I was looking at the action and not the minimap, and Fnatic just flew in.
It must be Aatrox and Lissandra hitting at
Yeah,
the same time. It's
called the Fnatic dunk. When they're back against the wall, they throw everything in the kitchen sink at the wall, and normally a Civic Q would be in there as well, but obviously they couldn't get their hands on the Civic. But yeah, when we bring the replay up, we'll see exactly. The one thing to note is Lissandra does have her Luden's Echo completed. I believe that he was on Black Cleaver with Bwipo as well. So here we are. Let's have a look.
Oh, please go slow-mo if you can.
Let's see. So Nemesis goes in. Remember, the goal is the tower, and 3 members of Splice are collapsing in. Hillasang is around as well, but the flash knockup. Now, keep your eyes on what Nemesis lands his ultimate onto. Right into the middle, it goes onto the carry. Then you also have the critical point from Bwipo's 2nd proc of Q, I think it was. Yep. May have been 3rd, couldn't quite catch it.
I don't want to be, like, you know, dictate what the social team is going to do.
I don't know, they're just grouped up.
But we need to get a mechanics breakdown of that one a little later today.
It was
Fnatic.
He just crowd surfed on Splice.
5,000 gold up, 7 kills to 3. And yes, this has been a very snazzy, fancy style of lead that Fnatic have accrued, the team fight around the back of the Dragon, and now that giant wombo. But more importantly to me is that 3 towers are secured. This should be a kill into Hylissang. Humanoid uses the slide and glide and divide and shoots the bird down in his stride.
What's important to remember is that... Oh God, that hurt. What's important to remember is how Fnatic got this lead. Because we talk a lot about it, and we've talked about it in this series, is that Fnatic are great at punishing mistakes. And the moment they have a lead, they're very good at League of Legends, right? They know exactly how to punish, they know exactly how to push their lead, and we're seeing it now, how they're moving around the map, how they're converting it into more and more objectives. And 18 minutes in, they're already sitting in a 5,500 gold lead. But it comes from the fact that you make that single mistake, you get punished for that small misstep, and immediately it feels like the whole game is falling apart around.
I also really like the wind-up to get to that point from Fnatic. The fact that they used the Rift Herald in the mid lane, and it was just Nemesis that ate up all of those plates, and he just got so much gold from it, puts him in this position where he has a nice bounty on his head. He's now sitting 2-0 and 3, and has the completed 2 items. A very cost-efficient build that Fnatic gifted to him by giving him resources like that early Herald.
And you can see now across the board, Fnatic in matchup per matchup are very far ahead. Broxah, even though he hasn't been involved in a lot of the early kills, his farm has still been very good. He's a level up against Xerxes. Vizichachi a level down against Bwipo. Humanoid a level down against Nemesis. Kobe a level down. You can see the trend where Fnatic are just continuing to push, and now they're looking for another pick.
All right, Humanoid will get the Stand United, but it simply isn't going to be enough. Stand United completes. That's another kill for Bwipo and Fnatic. Nemesis is now on a killing spree. The attention turns to Norskeren. Death sentence into box will not help anybody. And Reckless, late to the party, not even needed as Fnatic pick up 2 kills.
I mean, frankly, if Chachi Stand United's on Humanoid, he just Uber Eats at that point. It's just free delivery service and free food for Fnatic. Humanoid is so far behind his counterpoint. I believe it's something like 2K gold right now.
Yeah, I'll quickly double check on my screen, Frosco. That is... about right.
It got worse.
2,500 behind for Humanoid, 3,000 down for Vizichachi. But look, at 20 minutes, when you have an 8,000 gold lead, that's going to be the case.
But the difference is kind of the responsibility that Lissandra and Azir play to these team fights. If you think about the mid laners as being the big zone control, especially for such a long-range champion like Kabe, Splice's team fight is actually really pivotal on this Azir that's able to zone, create space, and do damage. So they are really stalled out for how far behind Humanoid is, and they need to make concerted efforts to get him back in this game before their composition starts ramping up to do what it needs to do.
And take a look at the items. I mean, Humanoid's got the Nash's Tooth and then some thrift shopping, you know, Codex as well as Arm Guard. Turn your attention to Nemesis. 10 stacks on the Soul Stealer. Got Protobelt, got Luden's Echo. You've got Ghostblade and Black Cleaver for Bwipo against the Sunfire Cape. I mean, pound for pound, and now with Rage Blade, Blade of the Ruined King, Reckless is also sitting comfy. He's late to the 2-item party as far as 80 carries are concerned. But I like the options that Vayne is going to bring in these side lanes as the game continues to play out.
Seeing as we're speaking about mid laners, Humanoid was actually the original mid laner for Mad Lions. He was then replaced by Nemesis.
Just salt in the wound right now.
Yeah, and now they go up against each other here in the LEC. And whenever we had RNA on the show, he always talked so passionately about them. Both very talented players. I believe Nemesis was ranked 2nd on Rookie of the Split behind Selfmade, and then Humanoid was actually 3rd. So it was a very close competition between the two, and a lot of growth and respect has been shown towards them. But right now, it is definitely the Nemesis and Bwipo show. Goes to show what happens when you don't camp Bwipo, when you just leave him to his own devices. He can definitely be a big carry for the team. And it's funny because Reckless, we haven't even mentioned his name this game because he's just been quietly sitting in the side lane, farming away, while the rest of Fnatic work their way through the Splice members.
And also importantly, his opposite number hasn't been absolutely smashing. Very good flash from Nemesis. Now Humanoid's in some trouble. Broxah's going to be forced to run away. Hylissang maybe chasing. There comes Nemesis, gets the root. Humanoid escapes with his life for now. Reckless doesn't fancy a shot in a 1v5, decides to dash back in, gets a couple of autos, and sidesteps away. Death Sentence will find the 80 carry, but it's simply not enough to get the kill. Super Mega Death Rocket gets no kills today. Defensive flashes as Reckless continues to tumble forward. Silver Bolt's proc on Chachi, and now all of a sudden Fnatic peel backwards. They've got vision control and maybe Baron control.
Yeah, and reminder, that was ultimately a 4v5. Bwipo was sitting in the mid lane like, guys, I've got this. I've got the tower. I farmed myself up. We just walk this one towards Baron.
his TP was also interrupted by Vizicachi, who then had the ultimate afterwards to try and rejoin. And now Fnatic have actually started off this Baron. They have all 5 members here. This isn't the fastest Baron in the world.
It's not. Nemesis has no ultimate, has no flash. Nemesis is in trouble. Nemesis is down. Fnatic, they tried to do that too quickly, and Splice were able to respond. They get themselves a kill. They also get the teleports from both Bwipo and Nemesis over the course of the last minute.
They do need to be careful with their back timers and stagger this right now, because Splice are all full health. It looks like they're going to take the safer play by getting control over mid lane, pushing on the tower, and clearing out the vision. But Splice could have very easily just turned on the Baron themselves.
I ultimately think it was a pretty greedy play from Fnatic as well. They didn't need to do the Baron. They could have just reset and then started setting up for vision around it. Because they already have such good vision control over the enemy jungle, it would have been really difficult for Splice to approach. But also, he lost all of his Magi Soul Stealer stacks, which is really the biggest crime of that play. He was over the wall, he didn't have flash, didn't have ulti, ended up losing his life, and a lot more. And it just goes to show, kids, don't run Magi's unless you're 20-0.
Do so responsibly.
Do so responsibly.
I really wasn't sure where that was going to go, but I like where it landed. Good message to send the fans at home.
I mean, it means that a lot of the advantage that Lissandra had built up, which he still has one, has now faded away.
Okay.
And meanwhile, we said that Humanoid, he's really pivotal to making this composition work in the 5v5. He's that much closer to these big power breakpoints because he does have his Hourglass now, which gives him a lot cleaner and safer engagement. So it actually could be a very big deal that Nemesis lost so much power in his back pocket by feeding away those stacks when he had a big lead.
Also a couple item breakpoints to the side of Splice. Zhonya's now completed for Humanoid. It's actually a pretty big deal. He's caught up in levels to Nemesis, which means that as things progress, he's going to get stronger and stronger, and he's going to have a little bit more survivabilities in these fights. And also, Koei working towards his 3rd crit item as well, which means that he's getting to a point where he can be a big threat and help carry these team fights as well. So I think Splice are getting to a point where it will be harder for Fnatic to snowball as convincingly as they have been. So they've got to show the same respect that Splice showed to them in Game 2, where a big, bad team fight could actually swing the game back in favor of Splice.
Excellent point, Vedius.
And especially when you look at the team fight power that the Splice composition has. Fnatic have started this Baron as a 5-man unit. Humanoid, no TP available. Xerxes going to use that passive to spot it out, and Nemesis has got a good flank opportunity. The Baron is down to 2,000. Chachi's inside the pit. There's a fight to multiple fronts. Baron this time secured by Fnatic, and now an ensuing fight. That's already 1 kill onto Xerxes. Bwipo is dunked down, Copy. He's going to use that Aatrox to its maximum powers. Reckless slides around the divide. He finally gets shut down by the Conquering Sands. And as it stands, it's Fnatic that get the ace, it's Fnatic that get the Baron, and it's Fnatic that are looking at the base.
Those are long death timers, and with the Baron buff, Fnatic could look to end the game right now. There is no Splice opposition to stand in their way.
30 seconds on several members of Splice. Baron in powered cannon minions. This could just be it. Fnatic have taken 2 inhibitors. The minions are making their way onto the Nexus turrets, and what is the next step? Back away. Fnatic do not want to make the same mistake they did at Baron.
Reset and spend all of that free gold that you got as we take another look back at this setup. So the fact is that Fnatic, they've done their homework. They don't necessarily have the cleanest deep wards, but they did prepare the Baron and they can burn through it very quickly. So I think the initial thought here is we see initially that Splice are stuck into their base. Let's see how much damage we can get done with it before Splice show up.
And Zeus actually plays this about as well as he can. Notice how he tunnels behind so he doesn't get CC'd by the Lissandra. Flashes in, unfortunately Spite's a little too early. 200 HP was the Baron, allowing Broxah to clean that one up. The problem is all of Splice were so focused on stealing away the Baron that it left the Jinx exposed, and Bwipo was just like, yeah, no, I'll have one of them. I will obliterate your AD carry and I will feed my sword with your blood.
I mean, Bwipo's had a really, really good game on Aatrox. It feels like he's connected with so many of those chains. It's rare for me to see so many of them hit consecutively, and he's just playing the zoning really well. 5-0 and 6, and working towards his 4th item.
It just showcases, you know, why this champion is normally banned away from Bwipo. And again, just the confidence that he has to blind pick it. And he's said it publicly. If you leave this champion open, I will blind pick it. I will smash you.
And as it stands, Bwipo currently has 3 wins, 0 losses on the champion. 11, 5, and 12. He's going to be adding 5 additional kills and 6 assists to that record. 12,000 gold up. Gigantic advantages, ladies and gentlemen. Nemesis has got those 10 stacks on the Soul Stealer back, I'd like you to know, as the last stand is on the cards for Splice. Super minions pouring into the base. Ultimates available for all of Splice, but take a look at this. There's once again the chains connecting. Bwipo dashes forward, manages to connect with another Q. Humanoid's now running for his life as Bwipo is doing his best to zone. Reckless manages once again to dodge the Azir ultimate, but look at the follow-up damage. Silver bolts on the fountain is enough to get a double kill. Reckless running for his life. Super Mega Death Rocket, not going to be enough just yet. Manages to find one to Hylissang. Chachi chasing forward, using the zone of damage control, and Splice survive the fight.
And this is where we hold them. Splice lose everything in their base, but they got multiple shutdowns on key members because the fact of the matter is that Fnatic were just stronger. They had more of their item breakpoints. Now with all of these shutdowns, you have Azir, you have Jinx. Suddenly they can get back into the game.
And I will be honest, I think Fnatic, they got a little too confident in this play of theirs. Didn't respect the Azir ultimate right here. And what we're going to see is Bwipo make the I'm really fed on Aatrox play and think that he can kill anyone. Really, you should turn and focus the towers in this situation. Instead, he went for kills. The rest of the team decided to follow, and Humanoid had a fantastic 3-man ultimate, and that was the beginning of the turnaround. Kobe, he was able to regen on the base. Vizichachi was keeping Nemesis busy on the backline, and to be fair, Nemesis was doing what he was supposed to there, trying to end the game, and all these shutdowns then come through for Splice.
Can you imagine being the new guy on the team like, guys, can you hit the Nexus?
And you can just see the damage there. Humanoid and Kobe really pulling their weight. Kobe now level 15, Reckless only level 14. But Fnatic still in a prime position. While a lot of gold was handed over to Splice, 16 to 11 in kills, still an 8,000 gold lead. The entire base is exposed. The Nexus doesn't even have any turrets left.
Okay, Kobe got himself a lot of items, as you guys have mentioned, and here comes Hylissang.
Just rush the Nexus.
Can Splice do this again? Hylissang dumps all the way forward. Fnatic is split up, but it's already cost him. Brox has gone down. Reckless has gone down.
Nexus!
Ladies and gentlemen, Splice will not go quietly into the night, and Bwipo's now running for his life. 5, 1, and 8. Splice have held the base again.
You can't just ignore them, Fnatic. Look at the difference in the itemization.
Oh, Bwipo though, he's going to get the 1v2.
Bwipo gets the 1v2. May actually be able to turn this one around as well. Running for his life, the chains will help. Chachi needs to get the Spirit's Refuge down. That
no way.
Bwipo goes golden.
Kobe's hit.
Now comes Kobe, dash away, and that's the ace. Splice, hold on, they're only 5k down.
Ooh.
Oh, right, now, as we have the Vizichachi looking back, his memory of the fight, you can see that Fnatic just commit, but they can't kill Kobe. He's sitting on the back line, and he survives. Brox is the first one to drop, and Nemesis is actually very late to the party. And I'm not actually... Oh, he ends up ulting behind the turret, and he actually ends up getting melted by this Azir turret on the back line as well. I think the fact that everyone was clumped up allowed Humanoid and Kobe to basically be untouched, allow their front line to soak up all this damage, and then Splice just hold the line for even longer.
Ladies and gentlemen, jump into chat and spam. Will Splice win this game? They have held Fnatic at their no Nexus turret Nexus twice now. They are continuing to scale in items. 4 apiece for Humanoid and Kobe. Vote now. Will Splice win this game, yes or no?
So I very quickly would like to ask the observers to swap over to the gold, as we will now notice that Splice have actually caught up for us.
Yeah, and that's the key thing. Again, all of those shutdown bonuses went on exactly where they needed to go. We said that Humanoid needs to be a real champion for this composition to be effective, because look at Reckless on the Vayne. He's going to be the big carry alongside Bwipo, and these are a melee champion and a fairly short-range ADC. It is so hard for Fnatic to split into that full 5v5 and try to fight against a fed Azir. So they can't leave the base, Splice. So this should be a free Baron for Fnatic. But now I think they have to use this to smother Splice in their own base.
Well, yeah, definitely no more over-eager plays if you're a Fnatic fan and you want them to clean this out more cleanly than their previous attempts.
I call it a wood chipper. Basically, if you've seen a Christmas tree go into a wood chipper, you don't want Fnatic to do that again into Azir Jinx.
Yeah.
So if you're in a solo queue game and you look at your Vayne and be like, okay, we're in late game team fights. I really need you to carry now, Reckless. And you turn to him and you realize, why do you have double Vamp Scepter? And right now, he's sitting at 33% lifesteal. And I don't know if it was a misclick. You imagine that he's maybe working towards a Bloodthirster. There's also a QSS in there. Like, there are definitely many items I can see him building. It just surprises me that he's sitting on double Vamp Scepter right now.
Yep, that's definitely one. There's a few questions that we're going to have to ask the players and teams after the series wraps up. For now, though, Fnatic going to have one more shot into the breach. They've got Baron-empowered minions. Humanoid is running onto Bwipo. Bwipo's already already going to have his ultimate bring him back to life. Now, Bwipo's in trouble. GA has now been popped. Humanoid's not done yet. Inhibitor in the middle lane secured. Not enough support for the rest of Fnatic. Bwipo is down. Humanoid has done enough to defend the bottom lane, but Fnatic have secured the second inhibitor, and this is about smothering Splice, like you said, FLICKR.
Yeah, and this is the thing. Fnatic have realized, okay, we can't fight them on fair footing, so let's just try to pull them around their base.
Fnatic have been here before. There was a certain game versus G2 where there was an exposed Nexus, and all they needed to do was win one more fight to end the game, but the enemy team held the line. Now Fnatic face down this situation again. Arguably, they've got more experience. They should be the ones with the advantages in this situation, but Splice with this comp, it's only going to get stronger. Well, it's kind of at its strongest now with all these builds being completed.
Yep.
It is indeed, and of course, it is all up to how Fnatic play these next few fights. For Splice, they are still on the defensive, but Humanoid and Kabi have shown when their backs are against the wall, maybe they're at their strongest. They're able to win so many of these fights. That was the last regular Elemental Drake of the game. Next is going to be Elder. Just as a quick aside, Fnatic have 0 Elders all split. Splice actually have the most at 5.
Because that's frankly kind of the only advantage that Fnatic have. Unless Splice make a big mistake and kind of misposition, get picked out, they shouldn't fall down in a fair 5v5, so they need to take advantage of their map control.
Oh, Nemesis uses the Proto Belt to safety. Kabi's Super Mega Death Rocket is used, but look, Fnatic trying to play the map.
But exactly, they want to open up another win condition of having the Elder Dragon, and hopefully that will be enough to kind of get them over this hump that Splice have created.
Yeah, because realistically, in a grouped up 5v5, Splice are now the ones with the advantage. The Azir ultimate is going to cause a lot of chaos, and it goes back to a point you made at the beginning of the game, Frost, which is that Vayne is quite short range. The ultimate from Azir is going to make it difficult for Bwipo to get onto the back line. You can very easily separate Broxer and Hylissang from the rest of his team, and Fnatic are going to have to find a new creative way of forcing Splice into a fight that they can actually come out on top of.
And it's not even just the Azir. As the game goes on longer, and even the likes of like Rek'Sai and Chachi, if you wanted to get super creative, you send Rek'Sai and Shen into that backline. Like, how is Reckless actually supposed to play out these fights? This is so difficult to execute on.
Well, this is the situation Fnatic find themselves. Opted into this. Obviously, it was that blind pick Vayne. And the response was the Jinx. By the way, 405 CS for Kabi at 34 minutes. Multiple super minion waves pushing all the way in. Chachi's not going to be able to do anything, but look at the damage there onto Nemesis.
That was from a single Azir, by the way. He queued into auto, that was all the health gone. And imagine, he has 3 of them out. He gets 50% bonus attack speed. On top of the bonus attack speed already gets passively from his W. And then a lethal tempo kicks in. It's... Oh,
okay, so Baron has worn off. Elder's going to be coming up in about 3-ish minutes, roughly. Do Fnatic need either of those to win this out?
Yes. That's because the only thing that they have is control of the map, because Splice need to sit in their base and start to clean minions out. As these inhibs respawn, then it gets even scarier. So Fnatic are kind of like, okay, hopefully we can split them up with the Baron. Maybe we get the Elder. Maybe it's enough to put us over the team fight. But eventually Splice will actually be able to exit the base, and we may actually have a scenario again where Fnatic are like, pull them out of the base, we'll slip behind them.
It's funny that you mentioned that, because I'm not sure when Hylissang bought the Righteous Glory. Not Righteous Glory. Again,
the Reverie.
The Reverie, the Shurelya's Reverie, that's the one. But that's the reason why he won last time, because it was him and Reckless with the heal and the Reverie, sneaking behind the enemy.
Super quickly, as we're getting late into the game, Splice have traditionally not come back when they fell behind at 15 minutes. The biggest comeback they've had all split long is when they were down 900 gold to XL. And the reason I bring this up, it feels really likely that Splice could put up a stamp. They were down 1,700 gold at 15 minutes. They are still down 4,000 gold. They have no turrets at all. And yet, Fnatic are unable to get over that final hurdle.
The gold absolutely does not matter. The towers are very important. So what I really want to point out is, as the possibility of a backdoor actually increases, you know, if they use this Reverie, if Vayne and Rakan try to slip in behind to get the Nexus, it's where the vision is placed from Splice. When you're trying to guard against a backdoor like that, you need to make sure that you can see into the Fog of War, because you're checking for pathways for people to kind of weasel behind you, you know, like Splinter Cell high style into Fog of War to slip in underneath.
I'm taking a look at the wards right now. I think they've got most of the entrances covered, Frost. And as it stands, Bwipo's going to be in trouble. Here comes Humanoid. Bwipo's running for his life. A few seconds left before GA is available to him. World Ender is up as well. By the way, Elder Dragon 10 seconds, sorry, 1 minute. It's Baron in 10 seconds. So Fnatic, they could look for double buffs before they look to finish the game.
And those monster objectives, again, are just so important.
They are indeed. And so is Humanoid and Kobe's flashes. Both of them are up. They're under any pressure. Hylissang, they find...
Okay, sell Magi's, please, Nemesis. We're past that point now. You need to get rid of that item, get a Void Staff in there. It's definitely not going to be as valuable this late into the game.
He's just waiting
not.
for
Here we go, here we go, here we go. This is it.
All right, take a look at this. Baron has been started. This is Splice's vision. Relying on Rek'Sai's passive. Remember, Stand United is available for Vizichachi, so is the teleport, and there are no super minions pushing into the base. Splice are trying to buy as much time as possible.
And you can see we're about half HP right now on the Baron. It is slowly being melted through. Splice have no vision around the river, but Fnatic, they're too afraid to commit. The actual flank in from Nemesis, committing to try and secure that inhibitor. Oh, look at this. Really good decision-making from Fnatic.
All right, let's take a look. Pressure on the bottom lane. Now, all of a sudden, Chachi forced to run for his life. Bwipo and Nemesis, now they're backing away. Cersei's trying to turn this around. That is, of course, the Azir touchdown. But look, with Splice peeled all the way to the bottom, this could set up for Baron. Nemesis is running. Stand United onto Humanoid. Humanoid throws his flash away. Bwipo's buying time. 3 members of Fnatic will be able to have the Baron buff. GA's going to buy some additional time.
Look at
Hylissang is now pushing onto the inhibitor.
It's happening again! It's happening again!
Are being pushed into the base. This is exactly how Fnatic wanted to use that Baron, but it's at the cost of 2 team members.
This is actually so intelligent here. Now, Splice will get the Elder. There's no way that anyone can do anything about this. Maybe Broxah comes through for a steal.
But it's so risky.
But it would just be suicide, and the death timers are too devastating. But the fact that Fnatic were like, okay, pressure the bottom inhib, make sure that they can't contest this at Baron, get Baron for free. Hilly, meanwhile, while we're doing it, run up, get Baron empowered minions, and get the inhib. Brilliant map play by Fnatic.
6 Elder Dragons all split for Splice. Fnatic continue to have none on the map. Fnatic, however, picked themselves up a Baron. They killed yet another inhibitor. By the end of this split, Fnatic may have killed more inhibitors than most teams have killed champions. And Fnatic are now trying once again to figure out how to unlock this map. By the way, Mercurial Scimitar now picked up for Reckless as well as Bloodthirster. Medjai's is still inside Nemesis's back pocket, so we don't love that one. But as it stands, those double vamps now a little bit more valuable.
We're at the point of the game where people are selling boots. You just pointed out that the Scimitar has been complete for Reckless. Check out Kabe's items. That guy has no shoes. He's like, where am I going to go? We're sitting in our base.
Give me more swords. I just need the damage right now. Hylissang trying to look to use the Baron buff rather on a side lane. Humanoid secretly sitting in the bush looking for a pick. Won't find it though. And now Fnatic spread across all 3 lanes. There's no Baron buff on Nemesis, so he can't really threaten.
All right, 40 minutes in, 37 kills on the board. Countless opportunities for Fnatic to push this one forward, and now they're pushing 3 lanes. They've got those Barons that we've already alluded to multiple times. Kobe on 6 items. Remember, if you never leave your base, you don't need boots. Nemesis is chunked out from a couple of autos. Bwipo and Broxah.
Oh, they're going!
They're going for the Nexus! Kobe flashes backwards defensively. Bwipo's going to try to use that Whirlwind. That's going to bring it back up. The Nexus is being focused. That's a kill into Reckless. Fnatic have done it! What the hell is that ending?
And it was off the back of Hylissang once again. He was the guy that went behind enemy lines. He was the guy that used the Baron to steal the inhibitor. And then Fnatic go for the commitment on the Nexus.
Thaddeus, you called it. You said that Fnatic and G2 were in this position. That Fnatic have the experience. You know what? Fnatic knew exactly what they needed to do to backdoor, and they sneak the win away from Splice.
But the key word here is experience. It's the fact that in high-pressure, clutch situations, Fnatic knew they could no longer win the 5v5. They must figure out Rubik's Cube, problem solve, figure out how to solve this game, and they did it. And they did it multiple times. Not just with that backdoor, but with that crazy map play on the Baron, the bottom inhib, and the top inhib.
I'm going to tell you right now, if you are a Fnatic fan, that is not how that game was supposed to end. I'm going to stop celebrating the fun for a moment and say Fnatic almost botched that.
They did.
Fnatic gave Splice so many opportunities to come back into the game that they simply should not have done. But it did not buckle them under the pressure, and they did find the
I mean, I'm starting to get this feeling that Fnatic is not actually that great at making proactive plays. Like, when it comes to actually trying to make a decision and actually end up committing to something, they end up messing it up. And
I don't know. Like, I understand what you're saying. I feel like you can go either way on it, but the fact of the matter is we shouldn't be saying that of a top team. You know, you want to be like, they're so good at X, Y, and Z.
For sure.
Because I agree, they definitely botched it up. But you go back and watch the tape, you're like, but they botched it up because they thought that they had won and they got over-eager. If they had just focused on, it would have closed out. Like, you can go so many different sides to this.
True.
I'm so, I don't know what Shucks and the analysts are going to do. There's not enough time to truly break down everything that has happened in this game, let alone this series so far. But one thing is for sure, both teams are showing that they are capable of winning the series. And both teams are showing both good and bad moments over the course of the 3 games. I mean, that team fight, what feels like 35 minutes ago, got Fnatic a bunch of kills, and it got Fnatic the opportunity to accelerate further ahead.
So one of the things that does concern me for Splice is that they almost defaulted to comfort once again, and they really did go for scaling and allowed Fnatic to get to this really have full control of the early game.
We will have more time to talk in another game. Unfortunately, the analysts are chomping at the bit. There's only one win standing by between Fnatic and a spot in Rotterdam. We'll see how they close this out when we return. Thank you very much, Sharks. Just a quick update. Bwipo will be featured in our POV stream over at twitch.tv/RiotGames2. Nothing to do with that Aatrox performance in Game 3. If you are just joining us, Fnatic are 2-1 up over Splyce. Splyce were very vocal coming into today that they wanted to go to Rotterdam. They were going there. They were going to join the finals weekend. And this is the game where they have to prove they belong there when there is no room left for error. And
I really agree with Deficia's read right there. So far, the most successful iteration of Splyce that we've seen in this best of 5, and frankly in the regular split, is when they rely on Kobbe, when they get him his firepower, his comfort picks. So if I'm Splyce right now, I'm looking at my star ADC, I'm like, what do you need? How can we set you up? What can be success? Because at this point, you go back to comfort. Do what you know works.
I agree. And now we're going to be keeping an eye on what exactly changes in the draft. Already we're seeing a bit of a shakeup with the Kayle coming through and the Rakan ban. So respect going towards both Nemesis and Hylissang. I like these bans a lot, but it does leave open things like the Sylas right now. But fortunately for them, they don't need to ban the Karthus, of course, because they are on the blue side this time around.
And we have had questions about the fact that Sylas has been banned by Splyce from the blue side, so maybe Fnatic take the gamble here, leave it open thinking that Splyce aren't comfortable playing it, and get kind of the 2-for-1 special if Splyce don't take it away from them.
Few seconds left to figure it out. Hecarim has found himself in the ban pool, not showed up yet. Jarvan has been very high priority, as has that Lissandra as well. So a number of picks that these teams can decide where they want to go, and it will be a Ryze ban. Humanoid's Ryze was hugely important, and we were asking questions about the Sylas. It has been first picked near instantaneously.
Now, I will say that I expect this to be in the jungle more than anywhere else. I do think that Xerxes is very comfortable on the champion, and I think that he can be a very effective jungler. I had a really good chat with him about it, and he thinks his clear speed is very good, his dueling is very strong, and it also gives you room to put carries and more flexibility in your draft elsewhere, but that flex option is a very valuable thing for the side of Splyce.
Yeah, and speaking of flex options, Fnatic then respond by picking up their own flex options. They've got the Jarvan. We've already seen Bwipo and Broxah play the champion. It means that it's very unclear, but
yes.
Double down.
So this is great because the one thing I was going to talk to you about, Frost, was is it concerning that we've actually seen such little Hecarim in this series? Because I was like, well, if either of these teams want to go up against G2 or Origin, you're going to need this pick to challenge the likes of them. But instantly Splyce lock it in. It does have the flex option of being put into the jungle or top, but I think we can safely assume that for now it's going to go in the top lane.
And the next pick up is going to be this Vayne now for Reckless. Once again, blind pick. Safely expecting Hecarim top, expecting Sylas in the jungle. That means we're looking for an AD carry, as well as that mid laner for Splyce. Let's see what Fnatic decide to pinch, because this will give us some more indications on where the champions are going.
I feel like it should be, you have a couple of options. I'm curious if they'll ban long-range champions, because I feel like picking the Vayne when you already see the Tahm Kench here probably feels pretty good, because you're like, it's not a heavy engage support champion, so unless it's paired with something like an Ashe or a Caitlyn, they're not going to be able to do a lot to me, and maybe I get a free lane phase, which that Vel'Koz actually tells me that,
I was just laughing at it.
They're saying, okay, it's a Tahm Kench, I want a free lane. Now limit some of the marksman options that Kobbe has to try to punish this pick, and let's get Reckless going again.
Yeah, I agree. Interestingly, we're seeing an Akali ban. Now, the reason for this is Akali has been considered one of the better matchups into Hecarim. She's a very strong side lane duelist, and as the game progresses, typically Hecarim scales well, so does Akali, and she can beat him in the early laning phase. So, really good ban, and definitely makes the matchup easier for the side of Splyce.
Another pivot here, Jinx banned away. This is 2 target bans to Kobbe.
Yeah, and again, those long-range marksman picks or bot lane picks that can be paired with the Tahm Kench and still have a lot of priority and control into the lane. That said, Kobbe still has the option to look for a Tristana, to look for a Caitlyn, and still try to go toe-to-toe.
That's what I want.
You want Draven now?
I think, no. It's terrible. It's really bad into this draft. They're not going to do it. I'm laughing. I think Tristana makes the most sense right now.
I agree.
I really don't like the matchup, though, with like a Tristana and a Tahm Kench. Ashe is the other one you mentioned that I'm kind of leaning towards right now, and it would offer like another engage alongside the Hecarim.
The only thing that I'm concerned about for an Ashe, because Tahm Kench Ashe is such a powerful lane, is that Kobbe doesn't get that like hyper carry potential as opposed to putting him on the likes of a Tristana. So for me, I feel like I like the combination. It'd be cool, but then you're taking some power away from Kobbe in terms of his scaling potential.
Well, let's see what Kobbe decides. He's got a few seconds now to round out the draft. It was Alistair locked in for Hylissang, and it was Aatrox was the final ban from Splyce. So Bwipo will have the option of running that job in top lane or giving it to Broxy in the jungle. And of course, as Splice rounded the composition, will give us more knowledge. Ladies and gentlemen, the tiny master of evil, it is FLICKR. Now, which lane is FLICKR going to?
It's bot lane, Quickshot. We talked about this earlier in the day. You said, what surprising bot lanes could we see? And I seem to remember me saying, I think you have to be careful of the FLICKR, Mr. Quickshot. It's my, ooh, I was correct again. Now, what we actually talked about was FLICKR Alistar, but with the Alistar being taken away and the high priority on the Tahm Kench, we won't be seeing that. However, the really cool thing about FLICKR in the bot lane is how effective he is against champions that don't have blinks. Fun fact, Ezreal's the only one, which means that it's very easy to lock AD carries down towards the bot lane and set up a lot of plays.
Which is why I think the,
No.
Wait a second, wait a second. Okay. So,
oh,
Sivir
this is
locked
so
in.
big brain, such big brain.
Why is it big brain, Vidius?
Oh, it's more to do with the fact that Civ is really good into the FLICKR. The spell shield means that you'll never get locked down by the event horizon. And Vayne should do very well into the Sylas. The thing about Sylas is he actually struggles to pressure you in lane early on anyway. So against the Vayne, he's never going to be able to do anything, and he's just going to get outscaled.
I'm just so curious about the levels to this, because the fact of the matter is that Fnatic have trained people that he will blind pick Vayne. He's done it multiple times. He does it this time. Splice are like, this is easy. It's the Vayne versus FLICKR. We've got him. We've set the trap. And then they just go one level deeper, one dream deeper in this Inception and pull out the Sivir.
Okay, now how...
An ode to Caps.
And I was just about to say that. Fnatic are one win away from the semi-finals next Saturday in Rotterdam, where they will face the loser of G2 versus OG, which is happening tomorrow. Splice are a loss away from being eliminated from the Spring Split LEC. And in this game, we had a last-second pivot that Sivir comes in, pushes Vayne to the mid lane. And I need to know, where are we going to be looking early game-wise? Because this is not the type of composition we've seen anywhere.
I know that we've just talked about, the fact that it's this crazy outplay from Fnatic. I do want to put attention to that. I thought that Splice were going to go back to comfort in their final game, back to the wall, do or die. But the fact that they pulled out a pick like a FLICKR, that they're trying to stretch and show off everything that they've prepped for this match, this also threw me for a curveball. And I'm very curious how they're going to execute on so many new, unique picks.
There are so many fun, unique picks to talk about, Quickshot, but we are here in Game 4. Fnatic 1 win away, and if you haven't got your tickets yet, remember that next week, the winner of this match will go up against the loser of G2 versus Origin. It's going to be an exciting one, and they will then have an opportunity to go up against the winner of that matchup, obviously, in the final. So really, really exciting stuff happening next week. So I'm looking forward to that, depending. And remember, Splice can still come back in this game. They've got a lot of creative picks. They're not completely out of this series yet.
They can force Silver Scrapes and Game 5 if they can make this FLICKR work. So, taking a look at this bottom lane, FLICKR TK coming up against Sivir Alistar. How is this matchup going to play out? Because, Vidius, you knew it was going to happen. At least you researched it.
So, I actually researched it from solo queue. Ender and I play a lot of ranked games these days, and we've been experiencing a decent amount of FLICKR and Alistar. And the reason why that's so scary is the moment that the stun, I believe it's called Event Horizon, comes down.
Yep.
That's correct.
The Alistar will knock you into the wall. Now, that won't happen this game. The main thing you're actually doing here with the Tahm Kench is providing that extra bit of safety and security for the FLICKR, but typically what he's very good at is gank setup. Because you land the Event Horizon, very few AD carries can get out of that situation, and I jokingly said Ezreal's the only one, but Sivir is the other exception because of her spell shield.
Again, it's this idea of the Thunderdome for Splice. They want to set the Event Horizon, and then here comes the truck in Xerxes and just roll someone over who's trapped inside of it. And we talk about how FLICKR is a unique pick. The other one is the Hecarim. Now, normally we've seen the Hecarim top with all of the changes. He's got a lot of power back into his Q. In the jungle, I don't like it as much because I feel like for this type of Hecarim to really be effective, you still want a lot of those damage items, and it's just less gold than laning him.
Point.
So I'm curious if Xerxes is able to get a snowball going by camping that bot lane and able to springboard himself into a power point like that Trinity Force Hecarim that thrives in the top lane.
And also, Vidius, didn't you expect the Sylas to go in the jungle in Xerxes' hands? So there's that added flex that ended up being double bluffed by Fnatic.
Yeah, we talked a little bit in the draft about how you can flex all these different champions. Xerxes will now just realize that his blue buff has been stolen. They actually set up very little vision towards the top side of the map, and I do notice the Brox used a sweeper. I wasn't tracking early jungler, so I'm not sure if they actually swept out any vision very early on, but ultimately Brox is going to walk away as a happy man. And the reason why I bring this up is because something that Xerxes talked to me a decent amount about is Hecarim in the jungle early on, very weak, very little that he can actually do, and he's a huge risk of getting counter jungle, so you want to avoid matchups like Lee Sin or Rek'Sai, but one of the cool things that he can do is once he's got that Predator, he's very effective at setting up ganks, and already he's looking top.
All right, Bwipo is going to get caught up by the devastating charge. The claw, however, cannot be interrupted. And Bwipo, with the next fake out, he took the Lissandra top lane, survives the first gank.
And that was kind of the gamble, you know, double down.
Going back.
All right, they are going back because Bwipo pushed forward a little bit. The minions are doing so much work. Chachi goes so low. Remember, Bwipo's waiting for the claw. Teleport is going to start being channeled. Bwipo is going to get some support. All of Fnatic are rocking up. Nemesis and Reckless, they join the fray. Bwipo stays alive a few seconds longer. Will get cut down. First blood picked up by Xerxes before he is turned around. Now, Nemesis trying to chase onto humanoids.
Now, the question I have, Frosk, is a double teleport worth, even though Splice ended up getting first blood? You've now lost an entire wave towards the bot side of the map. Nemesis even teleported up as well, and I just bring into question, should they have invested that many resources?
Oh, Hylissang's locked inside the baby cage. Teleport's being channeled. There are three of them.
Wait a minute.
It's Bwipo that's coming down to the bot lane. Reckless decides to stay top lane. Ladies and gentlemen, it is Shenanigans City here, and it's Fnatic that are really pulling out all the stops.
For me, I do want to focus in on the fact that it was Hecarim who also walked away with a kill there. And
yes.
Again, if we talk about the fact that Broxa did all of that work to attempt to 3-buff him, to keep him behind, Xerxes had to force something. If that gank didn't work, Hecarim would be so far behind, and then this champion just doesn't work, where someone like a Jarvan can work on low econ. The utility built into his kit is so impressive with his flag and drag and all of the other carries. So I love the gamble that Xerxes made. I love that it paid off, and ultimately, because he got that, or picked up that kill, I'm going to say it is worth for Splice in the long run.
Well, the risk is now, here we go, the collapse.
Oh my word, the event horizon doesn't matter from that glacial path. Now it's a 2v2, and Xerxes trying to run down Bwipo. He's rampaging all over his face. Here comes Broxa. Not going to be enough just yet. Kobe gets caught around, knocked up, knocked down, killed by Broxa. All of a sudden, the picks and bans for Fnatic pulls them ahead.
And somehow Fnatic are finding kill after kill. That was supposed to be Splice's play in the bot lane. That was supposed to be them punishing the flashless Bwipo, but it ends up being an all-in from the Alistar Lissandra bot lane, and Fnatic walk away with the kill.
But what about the... Oh, that's so ingenious. Like, now that I think about it, it's like, Bwipo didn't have flash. He's been camped this entire series. Let's put him in the lane with a partner so he can't punish his flash.
And not any partner, his old partner from last year. The original duo that took Fnatic so far. They were able to find another 2 versus 2 kill, and it was the Brawling Brothers that found so many advantage for Fnatic last year when they played together.
And back-to-back scenarios of how the event horizon can be negated. Now, of course, you're not going to get those scenarios every single time, but the Sivir Spell Shield, the Glacial Path, showing up when Fnatic needs it. They're 1,400 gold up. They're 4 kills to 1. Brox is already on a roll at 2-0-1. And this Vigor has not yet had the impact they wanted it to, but you cannot deny the power that it will have as we get to those skirmishes in the mid-game.
And I can't help but feel that Bwipo was like, man, I got to go back to top lane. Give me that bro fist, Hylissang, one last time before we make it forward. And it's such great stuff. Beautiful setup in the bot side of the map. Fnatic now lead with 4 kills to 1, and just look at the goal difference already. I was asking the question, was that teleport play worth it? Well, so far, it's working out massively for Fnatic.
Well, to be fair, it was after disaster that happened in the bot lane. But yes, ultimately, it was very worth it for Fnatic.
And I think for us to add on to that, it's very rare when you see a teleport play like that play out, and then the people just stick to those lanes. But when you've got such a unique draft and approach, it worked out. Take a look at the damage there. That's a Devour up by Noskera, and he's going to spit Kobe back out.
It's kind of one of the differences between these teams. We always talk about how well researched Splice are, how they're one of the smartest teams in the league. I'll hold it.
All right, here's the damage. Broxa and Bwipo doing a lot of work here onto Chachi. Stand United will buy some time. They will get the flash out of him, so ends up being a successful gank.
But the fact is that when Splyce are kind of in their set playbook plays, the difference is that teams like Fnatic, G2, and Origin have that collective experience playing with the roster, that they're able to put a spin on it, that they can problem solve during the match. And I think that's somewhere where Splyce are still kind of finding their feet with this iteration of their roster. They need to kind of warm themselves up and learn how to change gears a little bit faster when things don't go according to plan.
Yeah, I think that's very valid. And something that the analyst desk mentioned as well was that they expect the winner to be whoever gets the early game advantage, and right now it is Fnatic that holds that. Now, that's not to say that Splyce can't come back, but you've got to remember that they lack a marksman right now. And one of the big late game win conditions is that marksman role, and Kobbe isn't playing that. He's not on the champion that you often look at him to carry in those late game fights with, and that's not to say that a Vigar can't swing a fight in the late game. The fact that his ultimate was changed a while ago to do percentage missing health, he has that burst ability to just eliminate someone from the beginning of a fight, but it takes a while to get there. You need to stack up your Q, you need to stack up that passive, and you need to get those IP items, and Fnatic may be able to snowball before you even get there.
It changes the game in how Splyce actually need to siege and kill towers, because why we can see how strong this composition can be in skirmishes and in 5v5s. Yeah, they can siege towers, but it's through killing the opponents and diving them who are standing on the tower. The power of Event Horizon to zone away from something, to give you some time to go up and hit it, but this is a lot of melee champions that basically if Splyce ever want to be a position to walk up to Fnatic, they have to dive it. So they must be ahead of the clock, and they must have a lot of gold that they can kill people safely under that structure. And against this type of composition, that is so terrifying. That's a Jarvan, Lissandra, Alistar. You never want to dive it. You have to be so far ahead to execute on that.
Well, they're not. It's nearly 10 minutes in. Froskin's 2,000 gold there or thereabouts. Infernal Drake was just picked up by Fnatic, and I saw Xerxes trotting around the river trying to set up a play. Also important to note that Vizicachi has been playing mid lane for the better part of the last 2 minutes. We'll be recalling shortly as Humanoid is going to go toe-to-toe with Bwipo, has thrown out the hijack. We'll be able to cast, self-cast the ultimate. In fact, or it may already have been there. Now Bwipo's going to go down on Sword of Shadows, comes in. This is the turnaround for Splyce. They've got themselves one. Brox is forced to run for his life as Hillisang will be going down. He flashes over the wall. That's a follow-up from Humanoid. There's finally the kill. That's 2 quick kills for Splyce.
Love the confidence there from Humanoid, knowing that he had the level advantage over Bwipo, and he was strong enough to go for that kind of a trade against the Lissandra. He had the Shenot backing him up, he knew Xerxes was on his way, and even though initially it looked like Fnatic had the numbers advantage, it was simply a matter of time until Splyce turned this one around.
And this is exactly what Splyce need, because again, sieging is going to be difficult, but if they can get someone like this Silas, like Humanoid, really snowballed into a side lane and then also have the Hecarim, they don't ever need to try to siege where it's fair. They can try to split up the map and again, rely on that 1-3-1 or 1-4 that we've seen Splyce attempting again and again in this best of 5.
One of the scariest things about Silas in these situations is the shield that he gets on his E that actually mitigates so much damage against his opposition. And I love the way in which he utilized the ultimate from Lissandra as well to ulti himself once again to buy time, because he knew the team was on his way, and now he can become that potential carry that Frosk was just talking about.
On a personal rant, it's insane watching hijack from Silas while Bwipo is playing Lissandra, and my brain is just expecting it to be in Nemesis's hands. It's just such a different draft. It's such a different decision-making than we're used to seeing. But Splyce, they've not given up yet. They managed to get themselves those 2 quick kills. As you mentioned earlier, Frosk, Xerxes on this Hecarim, he needs to get some of that gold. He's been involved in all of his team's kills. 2 kills, 2 deaths, 1 assist. And I want to see what direction he goes now that he started to pick up. He's completed his first item.
Yeah, and I'm glad you mentioned that as well, Quickshot, because he is going for the Cinderhulk immediately into the armor boots. Now, armor boots make a lot of sense against the double AD carry that's going to mitigate a lot of the damage, but it's something that ties back into what Frost was saying earlier, where he is quite a gold-intensive jungler. And he spent a lot of his time farming so far, but even then, he is behind Broxah. He hasn't had the same pressure in his lanes to just kind of invade, get a lot of gold into his back pocket, and so right now, he's not that big, scary Hecarim. He's basically just a tanky CC bot with his ulti.
I'm actually really curious what his final build path is going to be if he decides to really spec more into that tank, especially because Humanoid is starting to kind of pick up steam on this Silas, or showing how powerful he can be.
I don't think he'll go for the Trinity. Whoa, that's a lot of damage.
Bwipo has been chunked out by Humanoid, and we will see what direction Xerxes goes itemized. But I also want to mention Hextech GLP 8000 picked up by Kobbe. Farming with his Baleful Strike, he's managed to pick up around 65 additional ability power at this time, and we're going to keep track on how that plays out. And Humanoid, definitely sitting very comfortable on this Sylas, and he's bullying everybody in his lane. As all of a sudden, Kobe's in some trouble. He's actually going to try to turn it into Hylissang. From Ideal Burst was used, rather. Bwipo will buy some time, maybe just enough to help get a kill to Xerxes. Bwipo survives the onslaught of shadows. He outplays again, and Broxah takes down Humanoid.
Bwipo, that was clean. He recognized that he was going to die, so he wanted to take at least someone with him. He flashes and locks Xerxes underneath the tower, and then his team is there to support. Fnatic find themselves 2 quick kills, and mad props to Bwipo for making the outplay.
And frankly, even though Bwipo gave up the early kill later on, his fancy footwork, this is just not the only clean play. This guy is clearly a very strong Lissandra player. He has been playing this game incredibly well.
Oh, and you can tell he was shopping right there. He was not paying attention. He gets smited, he gets locked down, and then immediately flash root. And because he has the Aftershock procced as well, that means that he has enough survivability to walk away with his life.
Now, unfortunately, Nemesis did not get the kill. The reason I say that, Nemesis has 73 kills, Humanoid has 72 before this game. Now they are even on kill score. We'll keep track on who will end up having the most kills at the end of this game. One of the fun little mini games I like to play, but Fnatic nearing 15 minutes, up 2k gold.
Now, notice as well how initially it was Splice that swapped Humanoid into the Lissandra matchup because he felt so confident in it. Now they've actually swapped things back. They're like, okay, Bwipo, we actually want you playing into the Shen. We want to make sure that Vayne is playing against Sylas so that he can't be this really obnoxious lane bully after he's gotten a couple of levels under his belt.
And again, I think this can actually be really punishing to a team like Splice, who still has, you know, some kinks to work out in terms of how quickly they find their lane assignments. Eventually, they will get on the ball because they have very strong fundamentals in terms of their league. But if Fnatic are constantly just kind of changing the equation, Splice are usually a team that are a bit slow on the uptake to find the right answer immediately.
Honestly, they can't be slow anymore. You know, as this game plays out, we're running out of opportunity, running out of time. You see the plates taken between the respective teams, but I mean, item spikes have now started to come in. You know, one across the board, Blade of the Ruined King, for Nemesis, Essence Reaver, for Reckless, GLP plus, need to see Large Rod. You'll see those in a moment from Kobe. And no clear indication yet. We have a Sapphire Crystal for Xerxes. I'm waiting on bated breath to see which direction he will be taking this.
That almost suggests that he's going for the Iceborne Gauntlet route.
No?
One would hope until he walks back with Infinity Edge and he's like, I'm ready to go.
Because you really want the Sheen on Hecarim because of how regularly you can proc it, and Iceborne is a nice kind of alternative. Now we see Hylissang getting locked up in the cage.
He has Event Horizon, didn't do anything for Reckless. And the Rift Herald will be able to boop a lot of damage. Turret plates fell over a minute ago, and Bwipo needs to once again have some fancy feats. Ultimate is available for him. Does he manage to self-cast? Yes, he does. Event Horizon should still just about tag him. No, timed out. Bwipo gets chunked down. He manages to get the root, and this time round, Xerxes Shadows will onslaught him down. And the Rift Herald is still being bullied away by Kobe.
I don't know why Bwipo was there, for being honest. You can clearly see that he was trying to rotate down with his team. He did it by going through the route in which he didn't have vision, and he ends up getting caught out.
I also just remembered, if anybody is watching the POV stream, it is Bwipo's POV, so you actually got to see that insane tower dive from his perspective.
Oh, yeah.
We can ask fans to verify and prove if he was shopping when he ate the devastating charge to the face.
That's a good point. Yeah,
so fans at home, if you were watching, let us know. And then, of course, in the next game, if we go to game 5, it'll be either Hylissang or Norscarin POV. Nemesis manages to get the Blade of the Ruined King before Xerxes jumps on top of him, starts to rampage around. Here comes Bwipo. Vizichachi goes back in. They've got themselves a kill to Nemesis. Bwipo's running for his life. Chachi should go down to Hilly, but the Devour will buy a lot of time. Chachi survives thanks to Norscarin, but here comes Broxah. One little boop. He will poke him with a Dragon Strike and then use the Blast Cone to get to safety. Broxah is able to sneak himself a kill on the board.
Now, Nemesis, he had blood in his eyes there, and he unfortunately got punished for it. He knew that he could get this solo kill onto Shen, and he was like, all right, we can commit to this, because Vizichachi, as you can see, he's not standing in his shroud, so he ends up taking all this damage, but then he's not looking at the mini-map. He doesn't realize that Xerxes is coming up from behind him. He thinks that he's safe because Hylissang's here. He knows that the rest of his team has teleport. Unfortunately, it's a 4v3.
That was the thing. It was like a bluff that was immediately called. The fact that Hilly's sitting in the background right there, Nemesis is like, I've got this. If anything goes wrong, Hilly's right behind me. We can 2v1 this situation or 2v2 it. And then Splice just doubled down and threw all of the teleports on it.
And they end up walking away with the kills. which means that the goal is still in Fnatic's favor, but you can see that this is still a relatively close game. Considering how Fnatic led with a 4-kill-to-1 advantage, it kind of looked like this was going to be an incredibly one-sided game, but Splyce are starting to answer back.
And of course, itemization, we are continuing to scale up. You've got Hextech Revolver sitting on Humanoid Silas. Righteous Glory picked up
that makes
for
sense.
Xerxes, as well as Tiamat sitting in Chachi's hands. So continuing to scale up, but I keep looking at Humanoid and Xerxes as two of the more influential players as this game will continue to play out.
I'm watching this 1v1 duel. They're both posturing for it, and Nemesis is now on the losing end.
All right, Humanoid's got so much damage onto Nemesis. Nemesis has flash available to him on the counter and the turnaround with the help of Final Hour. Nemesis put a lot of damage back, though.
And it's just so interesting because you can see how Nemesis, I'll hold it.
All right, now Bwipo.
He should be okay.
Oh, there's so many fights in so many lanes.
Because you can tell that Nemesis and Humanoid know that it's going to come down to execution in terms of how this duel will work out between Vayne and Silas. And they're both like, can I win it? I can win it now. No, I can't win it. And so it's this constant ebb and flow, tug of war back and forth between them.
Silas is a weird champion, man. You always think you can trade him, and then you can't. And when you think you can't trade against him, you can. He's like... he's definitely an odd one to try and figure out trying to duel him.
And there's actually probably a lot of questions. We don't know how much time that they actually get a hold of this champion in scrims to get the necessary practice.
Yeah, I mean, they banned it pretty much every game last week, right? Which heavily suggested the Splyce didn't want to put high value on it. But regardless, right now the siege is coming through from Fnatic. Going to use the Claw of Doom to escape from the Cage of Doom. Therefore, Doom cancels out Doom, and no Doom does in fact occur.
And the Spell Shield from Reckless avoids any and all Doom as well. Keeps the pressure on, though. That Event Horizon is still a very, very high cooldown. By the way, Kabi's over 130 ability power farmed up from his Q, that Baleful Strike. That's more than 2 Needlessly Large Rods secured in additional AP already.
Nice. Now, the one thing I didn't mention earlier was the reason why he's going GLP. It actually just makes it a lot easier to land the Event Horizon. Same principle as Ahri. Hers is like the charm, whereas Veigar is with the E. Obviously, E is a little bit easier to hit than a charm is, but still kind of adds to that extra bit of utility. The only issue I have with it is it kind of delays the damage. And I think right now that's kind of what Splyce is lacking. When you have a tank Hecarim, you have a Shen in the top lane, Humanoid, while Silas can do damage in like skirmishes and team fights, his actual overall damage output is kind of lacking. And against a double AD carry, that's my biggest concern right now for Splyce. Where is the damage in these team fights going to come from?
I don't know. When we see a lot of these skirmishes, it feels like there's still a lot of damage popping out.
Yes.
I like the fact that
But they're skirmishes, that's the thing, right?
Yeah, it's a very hit-and-run playstyle. So Splyce actually got fairly lucky with the fact that it is a Cloud Dragon, so there's not a big incentive to really group up. And they can try to play out all of these lanes with a lot of their mobility between the Shen, between the Hecarim, and continue to play kind of this ambush-style League of Legends.
It's so important for Splyce. They are behind in gold, they're behind in dragons, behind in towers. Reckless is even stealing away jungle camps from Splyce, and Splyce are against the wall. If they go down here, they are eliminated. They will take 4th place here in the LEC Spring Split, same as the regular season. Final placement. And we said at the beginning of the day, Fnatic actually wanted to pick Splyce. That was their ideal choice. They couldn't. The Splyce went 4th, and that's why Fnatic picked Vitality. Now we'll see whether or not Xerxes and Humanoid can run down Nemesis, take so much damage on that onslaught. Stand United committed as well, and it ends up being an easy kill, but a lot of resources invested for it.
Classic combo right there of having the backline threat of the Hecarim, and then you have the Shin on top of it, so it's not really a submarine. What's the name for that?
Speedy Ninja.
We're gonna workshop it.
Yeah, we're gonna workshop it. I'm not sure we're gonna find it just yet. Maybe we will. But take a look at the pressure here. Vizichachi can use that flash taunt from behind. And of course, Reckless Spell Shield will block one of the hard CCs. There's so much to work with. Frosky talked a lot about how the Splyce comp, when they can, they want to look to tower dive, and 1,000 gold difference right now is really negligible as Splyce have evened out. They've got themselves 2 towers.
It's when they have leads, they can look for tower dives because they have a lot of threat on it, but otherwise, they really needed Humanoid to get ahead. So it has been so critical that Silas has been picking up all of these kills because it offers that really important win condition for Splyce that they can continue to split up the map and again, hit and run, high mobility, make them skirmishes. Don't 5v5 unless we're really ready for it.
And one of the things that I have to ask, surely the fact that Fnatic have 2 ADs versus none gives them more power to defend?
You would think, yes. In terms of defend, yes. In terms of team fighting, the more I think about it, the more I'm not entirely sure. The one thing having double AD does help with is also securing the Baron, which Fnatic has started off. now may go for a bit of a fight.
All right, turn their attention to Chachi. He's been knocked up into the air twice. Give that man frequent flyer miles awarded by FNC.
Very nice.
But very nicely done by Norscared. Oh, Directless jumps in. He's already got himself one into Cobby. Peel away from Humanoid. Cataclysm comes down. Defensive flashes as Norscared finally goes down. A follow-on chase. Humanoid gets caught out and killed as Fnatic find 3 after they force Splice to react.
And Ender talks about this all the time. It is so hard to execute on these side lanes and maintain pressure when Fnatic have a 5v5 composition or a comp that can 5v5 well, and they force you to come to Baron. Fnatic just immediately walked to it and said, they have to turn and fight us, and we're going to crush them when they come.
All right, Hylissang's going to be interrupting, playing interference here with the help of Bwipo as well. Baron should go down to the double ADs and Broxah. Onslaught of Shadows just to buy some time. Bwipo and Hilly don't even go down. Nemesis is looking to chase. Chachi looks like he's going to be able to make it out. 5 members of Fnatic, they get the Baron. They're going to turn their attention to this middle turret, and they extend that gold lead.
Yeah, but now it's what can Splice get back in return, because here comes the team.
All right, take a look at this. Teleport's coming out. Chachi's already down. Xerxes used his ultimate, remember. Going to use that devastating charge into Bwipo. Bwipo's going to go down. Now the tension turned around. Nemesis running for his life. He's tumbling. He stays alive. All of a sudden on the back end, Reckless is looking to clean things up as Cobby is now left alone. 4 members of Splice are down, and Fnatic turn their attention. They're going to chase Cobby back as well as take the tower.
Splice do what they can to get something back after what was an awful fight, but it only makes things worse as Fnatic find another 4 kills, are looking to siege onto the base, and look, they're even trying to get the kill onto Cobby.
Yeah. That Event Horizon doesn't mean anything to Sivir.
That one was personal for sure. They hunted him down, they found the kill, and now they'll break into the base of Fnatic.
And this is just devastating here for Splice.
So as we jump into the replay, we're actually going to start off pause and have a look at how all of this is set up. So you can actually look at the positioning of Fnatic all grouped around the entrance to the Baron pit. And you think in this situation, okay, they're actually in a bit of a dire strait, but what they actually want to do is turn and fight onto either Vizicachi or Xerxes. So as we roll this play out, what you're going to notice is they're going to immediately blitz out onto Vizicachi. So he's going to get killed almost instantly, and Splice want to try and save him. So he has a good taunt, he gets consumed, and then this Event Horizon onto the 2 members thinks, okay, this is fantastic, but then Bwipo right here, diving into the backline in this kind of a choke point, ends up locking everyone down. And keep your eyes on Broxah as he continues to move forward into the fight, getting CC after CC after CC, allowing the rest of Fnatic to chase them down and find a big fight.
And of course, as we come out of the replay, Fnatic have found themselves an easy pick-off here onto Humanoid. Nemesis is on a rampage, 4, 2, and 5, and Fnatic aren't done yet.
And Fnatic just ran back onto the map. They said, let's get as much out of this Baron as possible. They sent 1 member mid to feed it all into the inhib. They grabbed the wave bottom, and now they've set themselves up for not just these towers, but also the Infernal Drac to fall back onto.
Hylissang is trying to put the nails in the coffin of Splice's spring split. They are on the verge of being eliminated as Fnatic find themselves the inhibitor turret. The rest of the squad are chasing onto Norscared. Humanoid still dead, remember, from the previous engage. Norscared goes down. Now the inhibitor drops as well. Fnatic with the Baron empowered minions consider the Nexus, but instead they take another inhibitor and they back away. Xerxes got the Onslaught of Shadows. Does he decide to engage? I'm looking very tentatively as Fnatic at 25 minutes into the game, up 10,000 gold, up 2 inhibitors, and they will be securing their 4th dragon of the game.
And frankly, it is very difficult to come back when you have lost 2 inhibs, especially on this type of composition from Splice. We kind of talked about how they want to split up the map, where they want to fight, but at this point, it is really difficult to deal with Fnatic when they just group up and say, no, 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 you must react to us. There's nothing more that you can trade on the map.
And it's really easy for Fnatic to set up this dive. They already found the kill onto Humanoid, which is really where all of the gold is. And you can see, we talked about it, where's the damage coming from for Splice? Cobby couldn't even get close to the fight because of how easy it was for Fnatic to jump on top of him. And now it's just a matter of time. Fnatic grouping up towards the top side of the map. They have more than enough damage, itemization, everything to close out this game and make their way to the semi-final.
Yeah, that's the truth. Next Saturday in Rotterdam, if Fnatic can close this out, tomorrow, let's wait, we'll get to that in a second. Let's take a look at this. Vizichachi goes down, Nemesis takes him out. Fnatic continue to put pressure onto the center turret. Here comes Humanoid, trying to do some work on that Silas, but it's simply not enough. Reckless is now on a rampage at 4-0-7. Kobe is trying to run away. The Event Horizon is not working. Primordial Burst does not have enough damage. The cheekiness of the Vigar did not help Splice. Fnatic were able to pull the rug out from underneath them, and Fnatic are now turning onto the third and final inhibitor.
Fnatic will be making their way to Rotterdam as the third inhibitor goes down. All they need is the minion wave. Only Xerxes stands in their way. Splice could not handle the pressure from this Fnatic squad.
Absolutely not. Splice put up a good fight. They improved and impressed, but it's Fnatic that will have the last laugh. It is Fnatic that has earned the right to defend their title in Rotterdam. "29 kills, 21 of which were secured by Fnatic. And you could not have expected half of what happened this game. With Lissandra at top, Reckless playing Sivir in the bot lane, the Vigar, and then of course seeing exactly how it all played out. Splice have been eliminated, 4th place in the Spring Splits.
And I'm glad that we get to see Coach Duke and Xerxes on the screen right now, because that's the key word that I want to take away, the unexpected. You know, most people, myself included, assume that Splice would come into this, that they would go back to the 5v5, that they would go back to the scaling, the team fight. I don't actually mind that they threw a wrench into the plans, that they tried to be experimental, that they tried to catch Fnatic off guard. To me, I'm like, yes, you know, I can respect if you're going to bow out, throw everything that you've got at them.
And while Splice unfortunately were not able to make their way forward, they still stopped the win streak from Fnatic, the team that went 8-1 in the second half of the regular season, the team that have honestly dominated so far throughout playoffs, having to work their way through round 1, round 2, and now they get the opportunity to challenge the top 2 in Origin and G2, both big rivals of theirs from history of old.
And of course, if you were waiting to see who would play next Saturday in the semifinals in Rotterdam, your first confirmed guest will be Fnatic, once again taking to the stage in Rotterdam in the Ahoy Arena. Tickets are available if you go to eu.lolesports.com/Rotterdam. You'll find out tomorrow who they will be facing. Reminder that our new playoff format will see the loser of tomorrow's match, the number 1 and the number 2 seed from the regular season, face off against Fnatic for a shot at the finalist, which will be the winner of tomorrow's match.
On the Saturday in Rotterdam.
That's
so
it.
you're only going to see them if you get tickets. You have to go get them now.
Yes.
Thanks, Riot Venius.
Yeah, exactly. You don't have to sell out that hard. But nicely done, Venius. Also, by the way, I'm terribly disappointed in all of us. We should have named the Shen Hecarim combination the Trojan Horse. Yes.
Wait a minute.
No,
I don't think that works.
It's good. I mean,
He's not really sneaking in. He's just kind of like...
That's what I'm saying.
He like knocks.
I prefer the Turbo Ninja, if I'm being honest.
let's leave it at this for now. Fnatic eliminates Splice. It was a great turnaround. Fnatic started a bit slow, finished it off well. Key up player of the series nominees are Bwipo, Broxa, and Reckless. It's so tough because I also think that Nemesis had some great games. I think Hilly's save in Game 3 was impressive as well.
That's the thing. I feel like a lot of people will grab Hilly, and while the cool thing about this Fnatic roster and why they've kind of returned to form is the fact that after a series like this, you could make an argument to give it to anyone and everyone. But special shout out to Hilly. You were a bro.
So what I actually think is great is when we talked about it in Game 1, we never actually talked about this is the player that needs to step up. It was always like, it's a team thing. It's a team thing. It was always about the teams when it came to these two players. And while in Game 2 it was a little more about Kobe, in Game 3 it was a little bit more about Bwipo, ultimately this has been a battle between two very talented teams that we have here in Europe, and it was very, very close and enjoyable.
And also some credit to Bwipo after having a difficult 2 games. The first one where he really struggled, the second game where he was focused by Splice, he bounced back in stellar fashion. And that Lissandra in Game 4 was quite beautiful.
I think the big takeaway here is that you almost must focus Bwipo to try to put him down, because if you don't pay any attention to him, he will walk all over him. That said, now the remaining top laners are Bwipo, Wunder, and Alfari, and that is a very steep competition.
Yeah, it's going to be really exciting. I'm looking forward to what happens next week, but we've got more League of Legends tomorrow as well.
We do indeed. G2 versus Origin tomorrow, 5 p.m. CST. Ready check 30 minutes before that. Before we get to that, though, we need to celebrate Fnatic's winning. To do so, we're going to stand by... wait, for more today, I think we're going to...
For more on today's action, let's head over to Shocks and Friends in the LEC post-game lobby.
Nailed it.